Zach awakens in a pool of black sludge. Darkness stretches endlessly. A distant white light looms, a doorway in the void. Black water ripples beneath Zach's feet. Cowboy Titanium's silhouette steps toward the light, broad shoulders, hat low, harmonica faint in the distance. Zach's eyes widen, brimming with tears. His hand reaches out. Zach says desperately, "Cowboy, wait! Don't leave! Please!" Cowboy doesn't turn back. The light swallows him whole. The harmonica note fades. The white light flickers, then two massive, glowing red eyes. The rotten core replaces it, glaring through the darkness. The eyes narrow, then slam shut. Everything goes pitch black. Silence. Then, a whisper slithers through the void, low and menacing. "This isn't over." Suddenly, Shadow Zach lunges out of the darkness, grabs Zach by the collar and lifts him effortlessly. His voice is distorted, layered with echoes of Zach's voice. Shadow Zach says, "I told you I'd be back." A sharp inhale bursts out of Zach as he snaps upright on the med bench, like he just woke up from a nightmare. The gray blanket slips off his shoulders and gathers in his lap. Blue lights from the PAS medbay glow over his sweaty face. His cracked phone rests on the counter beside him. The screen spiderwebbed. Across the room, Lockdown's cryo tube stands empty, thin frost slowly melting down the glass. Zach drags both hands over his face, trying to calm the shaking in his chest. At the console, Lynn types steadily, eyes on the monitors. Then Lynn says calmly, "You passed out last night. You doing okay?" Zach lowers his hands and looks over at her, still disoriented. Zach says, "Yeah, I'm okay, I think. Just a bad dream." He reaches for his cracked phone and checks the time. His eyes widen. "Oh no, I have to go to work." He stands up too fast, sways for a second, then grabs his hoodie and guitar. Lynn finally turns her chair toward him. Lynn says, "It is 5 in the morning, Zach. Briefing isn't for another couple hours." Zach lets out a breath, but still walks toward the exit. Then Zach says, "If I take another day off, they'll fire me. I'll just go in early and think of something to say to get the day off, while I get something to eat." Lynn turns back to her screens. Shadow readings spike across the monitors in uneven waves. Zach is already walking out of the room, heading toward the hallway. Lynn watches the readings sharpen, then speaks quietly to herself. Lynn says, "If you do not take a day off, you might lose everything." Zach does not hear her. He keeps walking down the hall, unaware of what she said. Lynn returns to typing, the glow of the monitors reflecting off her face. Zach pulls his hoodie tighter around himself and leaves the med bay. There were times in my life where I finally did the right thing, and then everything kind of just fell apart. I lost ground, I lost control, I lost people. But that doesn't mean the sacrifice was pointless, even when the outcome looks worse than before. And as this story keeps going, you'll start to see why having a connection to the shadow might not be a weakness after all. Downtown, Columbia. Cold air hits Zach as he steps outside from the hidden PAS entrance. He walks toward Plaza 700, shoulders heavy, still shaken by the dream. Zach reaches Plaza 700 and orders some food, then walks over to the corner of the dining hall to sit down. Zach sits alone at a table near the back, hood up, guitar slung across the seat next to him. His tray holds simple vegan food, quinoa, steamed greens, and a single shiny apple. Around him, students chatter, laugh, scroll their phones. He lifts the apple to his mouth. His eyes are distant, tired. As his teeth touch the skin, it rots instantly in his hand. Mold spreads in fractal patterns. The apple sags, then shudders. The apple grows limbs, its skin splitting into gnarled flesh. Tiny shadow tendrils leak from its eyes. It hisses, a high-pitched, unnatural shriek. Zach jerks back. Students start to notice. Gasps ripple across the room. The apple creature leaps at him, fangs extended, Zach's eyes flash neon green, then black. A faint black aura begins to pulse around him. Then Crazy Man inside of Zach's head says, "Let me out." Zach snarls, a shadow tendril curling from his wrist. The cafeteria lights flicker. Students scream and scatter, half transformed into Crazy Man. His face twists, eyes glowing. Zach unleashes a guttural sound wave from deep within. The apple monster halts midair, sensing something chaotic and dangerous. It screeches and melts into shadow, retreating through a wall crack. Zach collapses into his chair, breathing heavily. Crazy Man fades. Students stare at him in fear from a distance. Zach thinks to himself, "What the hell is happening to me?" A loud slam. Todd's office bursts open. Todd storms in, face red, jaw tight, holding a crumpled paper. Todd says, "You're done here, Zach." Todd strides over and tosses the termination slip onto Zach's tray. Todd continues, "You've always been a problem. Now you're a liability." Zach doesn't argue. He stands, silently, slowly. Students whisper. Some film him. He slings his guitar bag over his shoulder and walks out of the dining hall without a word. A moment later, Zach is in the locker room gathering his stuff. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead. Zach empties his locker silently. His hands tremble. His old name tag dangles in his fingers. He pauses, staring at the name tag. His face is distant, still shaken from the cafeteria incident. Zach thinks, Crazy Man didn't just lash out. He protected me. Footsteps echo down the hall. Todd appears in the doorway, face red, veins pulsing, holding a clipboard. His voice is bitter and patient. "You forgot to sign your exit form." Zach doesn't look up. He just nods and takes the paper. Todd stands there a moment longer watching him and says, "Whatever that was in the cafeteria, you're lucky I didn't call security." Zach finally looks up, quiet, searching Todd's face. A long pause. Then Zach says softly, "You don't remember, do you?" Todd says, confused, "Remember what? That you've always been trouble?" Todd scoffs and walks off, muttering, "Whole place is going to hell anyway." Zach watches him go. Alone now, he closes his locker slowly. Then Zach thinks, T-Bone Todd, that monster we fought, he was real. But this version, just angry, just broken, like someone scrubbed his mind clean. He holds the name tag one last time, then drops it into the trash, turns and walks out, shoulders heavy. At the exterior of Plaza 700 on a busy day, Zach weaves through the crowd. Guitar slung over his shoulder, he rushes forward. The unlatched case slips open. The guitar spills out and hits the pavement, the sound cutting through the noise of the plaza. Zach freezes, wincing. He drops to one knee, scooping the guitar up quickly, checking for damage. As he lifts the case to place it back inside, he notices it. The inside lining of the guitar case, a dried smear of ketchup dragged across the fabric like a wound. The red stain sits low in the corner, exactly where Carl tossed his half-eaten burger years ago. Zach's hand rests on the worn guitar case. He stops, fully, eyes lowered. Zach thinks to himself, this isn't about revenge. I'm doing this for my son. For every innocent life that never deserved what happened to them. What's happening to them. Zach has a couple memory flashbacks. Bright sunlight. His son laughs, running through a park. Pure joy. Animals leap beside him, escaping the darkness of Slaughter City and rising toward the higher realm's light. Back to present. The memories fade. Zach blinks, pulled back by the rush of footsteps and distant chatter as the crowd moves around him. Zach's jaw tightens as he stares at the stain. He settles the guitar gently into the case, closes it with care, then slides the strap over his shoulder and moves on through the crowd. Raccoons, squirrels, and deer watch from the tree line, solemn and still. As Zach walks across campus, something glows in the bushes. He pauses, looks, but sees nothing, then continues his stride. Moments later, Lockdown is at Zach's apartment, sitting on the couch, with his stuff scattered around him. Lockdown wraps his fists, bandana over his face, Lockdown says to himself, "If we fall, I'm taking their kingdom with me." He stares at a photo of 5 smiling kids, his family. Lockdown says softly, "For them." Inside of PAS HQ strategy room, the core team is gathered. Zach is not present yet, and the tension in the room is thick. Lockdown says, "If anyone should lead this mission, it's Z-Man. No one knows the core like he does. He literally is the only one to survive the core." Brent says, "He's not leading. That's final. He's not even here." In that moment, the door swings open. Zach steps in, exhausted, messy, still shaken from the day. Zach says, "Looks like I lost my job. And I'm all in." A silence drops over the room. Brent stands, anger and fear mixed in his expression. Brent says, "All in? Zach, your shadow nearly got Lockdown killed. We don't even know if we can work with you anymore." Brent glances at Kyle. Kyle avoids Zach's eyes, shifting uncomfortably, torn between loyalty and fear. Before anyone can speak again, a soft wind stirs the papers on the table. Leaves swirl upward, glowing. Mother Nature materializes, her presence filling the room with warmth and gravity. Mother Nature says, "This division is dangerous. You must act as one. It is the only way to survive what's coming." Zach says, "It's fine. I'll follow their lead, if they let me. This isn't about control." Brent gives Z-Man a stern look, and then says, "We know the rotten core will emerge today. Our sensors detect the rift forming either here at HQ or at the Elder Tree. We're not sure which." Then Kyle says, "Well, we can't leave anyone vulnerable out there. With stakes these high, I say we take every soldier out there and do comms in transport vans." Brent says, "We have thousands of dollars of equipment here, and our HQ on the line. If this rift opens where it says, I think there won't be a HQ when we come back." A crackling voice from the shadows emerges. Mortem says, "I've seen the place where the rift will bloom." Mortem steps forward, screens flicker, then explode in static. A cold wind passes through the chamber. The team rises, aiming light weapons. Mother Nature says, "Stop! Mortem is with us. He spent eons with the Rotfather, trying to bring him back to the light." Mortem says, "The main rift will open at the Elder Tree. Minor portals will scatter across Columbia, especially around your HQ, but not in it." Brent raises his scanner toward Mortem. It crackles violently, sparks jumping along the frame. The readings spike off the charts. Brent says, "My scanner's picking up shadow death signatures beyond anything I've ever recorded, stronger than most demons we've ever fought. Scientifically speaking, whatever you are, you shouldn't exist in this form." Lockdown steps forward, eyes wide. Lockdown says, "So basically, Brent's saying you look like death, and Brent doesn't even believe in fairy tales." Lockdown gestures between Brent and Mortem. Lockdown says under his breath, "If he's scared, we all should be." Brent shoots Lockdown a look but doesn't deny it. Then Brent says, tense and controlled, "So tell us, Mortem, why should we trust you? One word from you could cost us everything." Mother Nature says, calmer now, beside Mortem, "Because if he wanted to destroy us, he already would have." Then Mortem says, "You always see the good in others. It is both your strength and your burden." Mortem continues, "I don't serve the Rotfather. I don't serve you. I serve balance, for the light, and for what remains of it. But these are not the days before the fall. Shadow exists now, and we must learn to exist with it. If the light burns too long, the roots dry. If rot grows unchecked, the whole tree collapses. Today, I weigh the world. Nothing more." Mother Nature studies him carefully. Something flickers behind her eyes. Mother Nature says softly, "Still walking the line, I see." Mortem says, turning away, "Better to walk the line than to pretend to stand on one side." Brent says, scowling, "You hear that? He's not with us, not fully. We can't bet everything on a shadow." Mother Nature says, "No, he's torn and still watching." Lynn says, tapping her headset, "Whatever we believe, time's up. Enemy movement detected near the Elder Tree." Brent says, scowling. He glares at Mortem, then turns back to the group, voice low and grim. Brent says, "Fortunately, his claims match our secondary readings. I don't trust him, but if the Elder Tree really is the epicenter, we can't afford to second guess it. Lockdown gives a look of concern but cautious approval. Brent continues grimly, if we don't stop it right when it comes out of the portal, the rotten core will consume all of Columbia. And if my calculations are right, it won't stop. It'll grow thousands of feet high, miles high, until it erupts into a global shadow beast, something that could eat the entire world in just a handful of bites. Kyle says, stepping forward. Then here's the plan. Brent, Lockdown, and our elite PAS forces guard the Elder Tree. I'll lead every other PAS agent to the university. I won't let them use students as pawns again. Z-Man says, and where does that leave me? Mortem says quietly without looking. 2 Guardians should remain behind. Balance demands it. Lockdown says, stepping forward, jaw tight. Alright, Mr. Death. We took your advice, but Z-Man and I stick together. We ain't splitting up because you whispered some spooky riddle. Lockdown glances at Brent and then says, right, Brent? Brent? Right? Brent hesitates, then says, yes, Z-Man, you're with Lynn at HQ, but understand this, if you lose control again and lean into Shadow, we cut ties. No exceptions. Lockdown says, what? Bro, are you... He just said... Ugh. Quile says quietly to Zach, you're still our friend, but we're a light force. We can't follow you into the dark. Kyle turns, scanning the room, then points to Nikki. And Nikki, you're deploying too. We can't afford to keep you on the sidelines. Lynn says, frowning, tapping her headset. That leaves only me and Z-Man to cover the entire HQ. Not ideal. Kyle says firmly to Lynn, your comms and defense grid are more valuable here than anywhere else. Nikki can patch it from the field if needed. Nikki says awkward, trying to sound confident. Hey, I'm great at FPS, just not so much a real-life shadow monster, but I'll do whatever it takes. Kyle says to Lynn, and remember, if HQ starts to fall, hit the green button. That'll activate the safe room. Lynn nods firmly. The team files out, Brent, Lockdown, Mother Nature, Kyle, Nikki, all heading toward their transports, their silhouettes disappearing down the corridor. The strategy room grows quiet. Zach remains seated for a moment, staring at the empty chairs, the map of Columbia glowing red on the wall. He finally stands, then sits back down, then stands again. His breath trembles. Zach thinks, I should be out there with them, but if I lose control, I'll ruin everything. Lynn places a gentle hand on the console beside him, not touching him, but close enough to be grounded. Lynn says, quiet, you're not useless, Zach. You're positioned exactly where we need you. Zach doesn't respond. He stares at the monitors, clenching his fist. Then Zach thinks, then why does it feel like I'm just waiting to fail? Lynn turns back to her station, sliding on her headset as the doors seal shut. The two of them alone, waiting for a battle. Zach finally breaks the silence, and Zach says, how long do we have? Lynn checks the time codes, the satellite feed, the growing shadow storm on the radar. Lynn says, 3 hours, maybe a little less. A long exhale leaves Zach, half relief, half dread. He stands. Zach says, I need to see my son before this starts. Lynn looks up at him, not surprised, not questioning, just understanding. Lynn says, go, but hurry. Zach nods once, quietly grateful, and slips out through the back stairwell. The calm before his entire world fractures. Moments later, blue lights flicker across Brent's visor as he stands over 2 hovering maps. One map, PAS HQ perimeter, energy signatures spiking erratically. Second map, the Elder Tree, unstable light fields trembling as if portals might form within hours. Brent tightens his jaw, zooming in on the readings. Then he swipes. The screens shift to Rotfather's classified file. The Slaughter City scan froze mid-frame. Soft footsteps approach, Kyle says. Soft, try not to startle Brent. You're supposed to be prepping with the others, not doom-scrolling the devil. Brent doesn't look away from the screen. Brent says, I'm checking the portal signatures first. HQ, Elder Tree, both are destabilizing. If they rupture at the same time, he cuts himself off, staring at the Rotfather scan again. Kyle says sarcastically, so this is your idea of prepping? Digging through the Rock God files you said were fairy tales 6 months ago? Brent continues to flip through the data of Rotfather like he's trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Kyle leans beside him, lowering his voice. So you're digging through the old logs too. Everything PS ever recorded about him. All that folklore. Years of energy reports. decay patterns, entropy math. We've studied him down to subatomic behavior. Kyle tilts his head, trying to get a read on Brent. But now you believe he's real, just because you saw him once? Brent finally speaks, low. Seeing him at Slaughter City wasn't evidence. It was data for something we don't understand yet. He taps the Rotfather scan. The numbers jitter as if afraid to stay still. Brent continues. My armor scanned him the moment he appeared. 3 of the modules collapsed. He didn't just break the math. He broke the rules the math was built on. Kyle lets out a small laugh, half nervous, half admiration. Then Kyle says, so the great Brent finally found something he can't calculate. Brent gives a thin, hollow smile and a subtle nod, but his eyes drift, not back to Rotfather, but to a smaller window pulsing in the corner of the display. Rotten core data. Incomplete. Kyle notices the shift. Then Kyle says, what's that file? Brent hesitates, then opens the scan from the moment the rotten core vine touches Zack in Slaughter City. The vine rotates in mid-air, pulsing with jagged, unnatural readings. Brent says, this is why I've been running modules all night. The data spikes violently. A warning flare crosses his screen. Brent continues. When the core grabbed Zman, my armor auto-scanned it. Not the whole entity, just a single vine. He zooms in. The waveforms distort as if in pain. Brent continues. My algorithms tried to read its decay patterns, and the math didn't just fail, it collapsed. Kyle raises an eyebrow, and Brent says, I followed the energy trail deeper. If someone gets consumed by the core, they don't die fast. They don't die clean. Kyle's expression drops. Brent says, the core slows time inside the organism. Cells rot, while still alive. Heartbeat slows, but doesn't stop. Nervous system stays active, but lower frequencies. Data, DNA structured different in very disturbing ways. Brent continues, my projections say victims might remain conscious up to 100 times longer than normal, while they rot from the inside out. Kyle swallows. Then Brent says, the core squeezes life from them with perfect efficiency, like it's extracting every drop of suffering as fuel. He shuts the window with a trembling breath. Brent's visor reflects the Rotfather's silhouette again, but now Rotfather looks less terrifying than what Brent just described. Brent's voice softens, almost ashamed to admit the next part. Brent says, and yet, we've mapped out only a fraction of the core's behavior, and even that fraction is nightmare fuel. Kyle says, so like I said, the great Brent finally found something he can't calculate. Brent rolls his eyes, just slightly, and Brent says, not yet. Kyle steps closer, eyes drifting between the portal maps and the Rotfather silhouette. Kyle says, look, whatever he is, whatever these portals are, you're the one who keeps us alive, and that's enough. Brent turns back to the screen, watching the spikes around HQ rise again. Then Brent says quiet, almost to himself, for now. In the depths of the Shadow Realm, an army forms. In a jagged black plain beneath a storming sky, the Tree of Life glows faintly within a shadow lens that the Rotfather peers into. Then he crushes it in his hand, the image disintegrating into black dust. He turns and strides to the balcony to address his army. Thousands of shadow agents and beasts crowd around a cracked arena below. The Rotfather towers above, vines twisting lazily, with Mortem standing silently at his side. The arena murmurs like an earthquake, stomping, snarling, metallic clanging. 2 demons slip through the crowd, voices gravelly and low, but loud enough to be heard. Demon number 1 says, raspy, leaning in, crowd's loud tonight. Tell me, who called the trial battle? Who dares challenge the CEO? Demon number 2 says, the new champion, T-Bone Todd. Demon number 1 says, the tall one, the butcher giant. Demon number 2 continues, 15 feet, all muscle, no mind. A horn booms, a crowd roars, the demons barely pause. Demon number 1 says, he challenged the CEO. He really thinks strength will save him. Then demon number 2 says, he knows nothing of what that human has become. They both fix their eyes on the arena gate as it rumbles open. The Rotfather says, voice like thunder rolling over stone.
Tonight we march to choke the tree and drown the light. But only one shall command my spear. The one who spills the most blood commands.
At his gesture, Mortem raises a skeletal hand. A grotesque dual-chamber vessel, crystal and bone, floats into the center of the arena, each side glowing faintly red. One side faces CEO, the other side faces Todd. Mortem's hollow voice cuts the air. Fill your half, or be forgotten. The crowd hisses and murmurs. The fighters step in. CEO strides into the circle with calm precision, just 6 feet tall, sharp in his all-black dress shirt and blood-stained tie. T-Bone Todd stomps in opposite of him, 15 feet of muscle and scars, grinning wildly, his monstrous turkey-leg weapon slung over his shoulder. The crowd grows quiet. The size difference alone makes even the shadows seem to flinch. CEO says, voice calm, cutting, echoing through the arena. It's foolish of you to challenge me, Todd, but I'll allow it. Even your arrogance can be turned into profit. He adjusts his red glowing glasses, eyes narrowing. I'll use this spectacle to rile our army, sharpen their hunger, and remind them that even you, my biggest hammer, are still just a tool in my business plan. Todd steps forward, steam rolling off his skin. He snorts like a bull, raising his enormous meat club. His grin is wet, feral. T-Bone Todd says, booming. A tool, huh? Funny words from someone half my size. He rips a savage bite from the meat club. Chunks explode outward. One chunk slaps against the CEO's chest and slides down. The CEO barely reacts. He wipes it away with 2 fingers. T-Bone Todd continues. Look at you, tiny, pretending. You're in control. Think your shadows make you God now? Todd smirks, chewing loud enough to echo. Foolish of me. Nah, little man. It'd be foolish of me not to take the glory you parade around in. CEO raises an eyebrow, unbothered. Then very deliberately, he reaches to his wrists. Titanium-infused shadow tech braces glint faintly. With a soft click, he unfastens them. He tosses them aside. They clatter across the stone with metallic finality. The CEO says, cool, measured, just loud enough for the crowd to hear. I won't even need my best tech to bleed you out. Try to make it entertaining, Todd. The crowd murmurs, gasps, laughter, and Todd's grin tightens into something darker. Todd says, snarling, gripping the turkey leg tighter. You're gonna choke on those words, and this. He takes a slow bite, tearing into the meat. Mortem says, lifting his hand, voice flat. Begin. Todd explodes forward, the ground trembling beneath each massive stride. He swings the turkey leg like a demolition hammer, catching the CEO in the ribs. A shallow gash tears open. Blood sprays upward, rising in a thin arc before drifting toward the CEO's half of the vessel, which glows faintly. CEO rolls aside, already bleeding, already smirking. He snaps his fingers. Shadow knives sharpen from the darkness around him. 4 in his hands, 8 more blossom from shadow tendrils behind him. In 2 seconds, they carve 30 rapid slashes across Todd's thighs. Todd roars with laughter. His blood spatters upward, drifting into his side of the vessel. The fight becomes a brutal dance. Todd smashing groans, stomping shockwaves through the stone, swinging with monstrous joy at every cut he takes. CEO moves like a viper, shadow tendrils whipping out to block blows, stabbed from blind angles, set trip lines across the arena floor. At the same time, his tech mines blink alive under Todd's feet, detonating with perfect timing, carving surgical wounds while CEO's expression never wavers. Todd finally snatches the CEO in one enormous fist, lifting him off the ground. The CEO doesn't struggle. He simply drives a hidden wrist blade into Todd's forearm, forcing Todd to release him. More blood spills upward, dividing between both chambers. For a tense stretch, Todd's chamber glows brighter. Then the CEO's catches up. Then Todd's again. The crowd's murmurs rise and fall with every shift in balance. After minutes of vicious exchange, both figures are bloodied and heaving for breath. Todd leans on his turkey leg, chuckling darkly through split lips. The CEO stands tall despite the damage, meeting Todd's feral grin with a calm, almost knowing smile. Todd snarls, the CEO's head tilts by a fraction, unreadable with dark intentions. They charge one final time. Todd's turkey leg slams into CEO's chest as the CEO's blade drives into Todd's side. Both impacts land with absolute synchronicity. Both collapse to their knees. Blood from each man rises, hovers in the air, then sinks into the vessel. The chambers flare with equal brightness, perfectly balanced. Mortem steps forward and raises his hand. The crowd falls into a trembling silence. Mortem says, "Equal." As the glow from the vessel fades, Todd and the CEO remain locked together from the final blow, arms tangled and trembling. The CEO's blade rested an inch from Todd's vital artery, held steady by a shadow tendril, coiled along his arm. When the trial was called, the tendrils slipped back into the darkness, unnoticed by the roaring crowd. A ripple of shock passes through the army. Todd's grin falters for a breath before he throws his head back and laughs, low and guttural. CEO calmly wipes his bloody lip, watching him without expression. The Rotfather says,
"The elder commands, the younger obeys, until the blood proves otherwise."
CEO straightens, his cold gaze on the massive size of Todd as if the size difference means nothing. Todd glares back, still laughing faintly as he lowers his head, just enough to signal submission, though the promise of future defiance burns in his eyes. Rotfather says, turning to his army, raising his hands,
"March tonight, the light dies."
The crowd erupts into roars as the dual vessel floats silently upward, glowing evenly, a symbol of rivalry unresolved. The army roars louder, stamping weapons against the ground. Mortem steps back from the circle, cloak trailing like smoke. He turns, ignoring the chants, and walks away into the shadowed halls, leading deeper into the domain. But the Gravewalker drifts where the noise cannot reach. A dying rabbit twitches atop the Rotfather's grotesque feeding mound, bone, spoiled fruit, and writhing maggots. Its breaths are shallow, its eyes already clouding. Mortem halts beside the pile. He gives the creature a brief glance, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Then he turns away without a gesture, his cloak dragging the shadow across the stone. The coldness in his stride says what his silence will not. The rabbit exhales a trembling breath and continues to endure its suffering. Even mercy can rot. Back on the balcony, the Rotfather addresses his army. An army of harvest-mutated generals, oozing demon hounds and wailing husks of fallen heroes, all waiting. Black sludge rivers cut through the cracked floor. The Rotfather says, arms outreached,
"The world grew vandalized. Now it will feast on its own decay."
Behind the balcony, the rotten core, now monstrous and alive. A bloated, breathing sphere, looking like it was stitched from many different screaming faces. It pulses like a heart, wrapped in rotten vines and bone roots. The Rotfather says, while gazing at the core,
"No longer our parasite. I command and the core obeys."
Mortem steps from the shadows. His cloak drags darkness like smoke. His fingers glide through the air, leaving streaks of soul mist, gray twitching, half screaming. A demon soldier says, whispered, terrified,
"Why does the Gravewalker walk with us? Is he with us or watching us?"
The Rotfather turns. His tone shifts, quieter, almost intimate. He studies Mortem, not with command, but with curiosity bordering on respect. The Rotfather says, soft and rumbling,
"He walks because rot reveals truth. He sees what light refuses to show him is not power to decay, but he understands it now."
Demons sink lower, unsure whether this comforts or frightens them. Mortem gazes at the rotten core. Its pulsing flesh reflects his face, distorted, hollow, half-shadow. Mortem says, low and solemn, I no longer serve light. Its mercy blinds and betrays. He lifts his gaze to the Rotfather and continues, now I serve rot, because rot reveals. It strips illusion. It balances what the light denied. His voice deepens, resonant. I walk with you now, because decay is the only path left that weighs true. The Rotfather raises his arms. Above the clouds crack, lightning made of bone and bile ripples through the sky. The core begins spinning faster. The Rotfather says, shouting,
Let the rift open wide. Let the realms merge. Let the light scatter. Let fear ride their roots.
A tree-like rift begins powering up, preparing to split the sky open, and spores fall like rain. A crack in the sky flickers. Rotfather, towering above his army, still on the grotesque balcony of bone, turns to Carl and Todd. Carl snarls and nods. CEO stands at the edge of the throne room, arms folded, his tie still bloody from the trial. Todd glances back at him as the Rotfather gives orders, his lip curling faintly. The Rotfather says to Todd,
Todd, return to the campus. Corrupt their sanctuary. Let their food feast on them. Let them choke on their ignorance. When the job is done, return to the tree.
Rotfather says to Carl,
Carl, accompany Todd at the university. When it is destroyed, strike them where it hurts most. The boy, the hope.
T-Bone Todd licks his lips, holding a grotesque turkey leg club. T-Bone Todd says, time for lunch. Meanwhile, in the woods, in the earthly realm, Zack walks with Mother Nature. Mist coils around their ankles. The leaves above glow faintly with energy. Zack says, I never wanted power. I just wanted to protect my son. And the animals. But I feel it inside me. The anger, the resentment. My shadow self. Zack places his hand over the Z on his chest. What if they take over? Mother Nature says gently, they are echoes, not rulers. What matters is not what stirs within you, but what you choose to become. She kneels by a sapling sprouting near a fallen tree, and Mother Nature continues. The tree of life inside you is still young. It can heal. It can grow, but it must be nurtured with intention. Reach too far, too fast, and even roots can tear themselves apart. They pause behind the elder tree. It's glowing faintly, bark cracked but alive. Zack says, I don't even know if I'll make it out. My voice, my strength, it's not enough. He hesitates, staring at his hands, and continues. And every time I use him, crazy man, it feels worse. The light inside me, dimmer, like he's eating it, or I'm letting him. Mother Nature looks at him with solemn eyes. She says, because you are. You borrow from the dark, and it borrows from you. Every time you let it in, it takes a little more. Fight wisely, not by becoming what you hate, but by remembering what you are. Zack nods faintly, clenching his fist. Then Zack says, and if I can't? She places a hand on his shoulder and leans closer. Mother Nature says, whispering, then even your roots will rot. She exhales, then kneels again, places her hand on her root. Vines respond, growing upward. Mother Nature says gently, but they haven't yet. So when your fear can't stand alone, let the tree remind you never were. Vines from the elder tree twist gently around Zack's broken guitar, reforging it. Roots become the neck. Leaves etch into the fretboard. The body hums with faint green light. Mother Nature says softly, it will carry your truth now, stronger than before. But remember, power is still just an echo of the soul behind it. Zach holds the new guitar, odd, a sacred instrument grown from the elder tree itself. In the forest, a soft glowing blur moves behind a tree watching Mother Nature and Zach speak. Neither of them notice. Later, a soft golden light filters through a half-broken window in Zach's apartment. Zach sits on a worn chair near the wall, staring at his guitar resting beside him. Lockdown sits a few feet away, unusually quiet, elbows on his knees, looking down at the floor. For a beat, neither one speaks. Lockdown breaks the silence, eyes still forward, voice low and steady, almost too casual. Lockdown says, "If I die today, tell those 5 little monsters their dad went out swinging. Or maybe clean the house so they think I was organized or something." Zach smirks faintly, but says nothing. Lockdown pulls a small worn photo from his coat and looks at it. His kids, all smiling in a sunlit park. A tear slides down his cheek, before he quickly wipes it away with the back of his hand. Lockdown says quietly, "They think I'm invincible, you know?" Zach finally speaks, voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah. Mine too." A different setting later, Zach stands outside a modest home just on the outskirts of town, a quiet place untouched by shadow. His son stands in the doorway in pajamas, eyes still sleepy. Zach runs his fingers along the edge of his guitar, now fused with the elder tree, its body wrapped in roots and glowing faintly. He finds a small knot of wood near the base, presses his hand to it, and it releases with a gentle snap. He holds the carved piece in his hand. With quiet focus, he shapes it into a leaf, then etches a tiny Z on the back using the tip of a glowing vine. Zach kneels, brushing hair from the boy's face. He hands him the pendant, smooth, simple, and alive with faint warmth. Zach says, "Keep this with you, alright? I'll see you tomorrow." His son hugs him tightly. Zach holds on for a beat longer than usual, eyes closed. The wind rustles nearby trees. His son says, "Promise?" Zach pulls back just slightly and gives him a gentle smile, but his eyes betray the weight he's carrying. Zach says, "I promise." Zach stands and walks away as the boy watches from the doorway. He raises the pendant and clutches it. The door slowly closes. Over in a forest clearing, the team works in a tense rhythm. PAS soldiers pack gear. Mother Nature speaks quietly with Brent near the tree line, both preparing to head toward the elder tree, their silhouettes blurred by distance and rising mist. Lockdown adjusts the purple wireless mic hanging at his side. For once, no jokes, just focus. Zach's comm device crackles. Zach checks his glowing comm device. Lynn's voice crackles through, sharp and alert from HQ. Lynn says, "Z-Man, where you at? I'm already in place. HQ's quiet for now, but something's coming. I can see it in the readings." Zach lifts the comm closer, speaking calmly with the weight in his voice. Lockdown watches from a few feet away, silent. Z-Man says into comms, "On my way, just saying goodbye." Lockdown walks up beside him, eyes steady for once. There's no punchline in his smile, just understanding. Lockdown says, "Guess this is it, huh?" Zach nods, looking down the path that leads back to HQ. Mist curls around their feet as they walk. The elder tree's distant glow flickers between branches. This is the last calm moment before the storm. Zach exhales, stopping near a clearing. Zach says, "So Lynn and I will cover HQ. And after what happened, I get why they don't want me near the elder tree." Lockdown turns toward him, brows tightening. Zach hesitates, guilt pressing through his voice. Zach continues, "Lock, back there when Crazy Man took over, I'm sorry, you almost..." Lockdown immediately steps forward and cuts him off. Lockdown says, interrupting, "Hey, no, hey, stop that right there." He leans in, voice steady, loyal as ever, and says, "You didn't almost kill me. Carl did." He points at Z-Man's chest and says, "You almost stopped both the CEO and Todd in one move. Don't twist it." He grips Zach's shoulder, not dramatic, just real, and says, "You're my brother, man. I know the difference between you and the shadow trying to wear your skin." He steps back, adjusting his mic, and says, "We're not wasting today on guilt. We're finishing this." Zach swallows, something steadier forming behind his eyes, and he says, "All right, then I'll guard HQ like it's my kid's house." He gives a faint smile, small but genuine. Lockdown nods once, satisfied. Lockdown turns toward the tree line, toward Brent, the elder tree, and the fight ahead. Lockdown says, "And I'll keep the forest breathing." Zach watches him take a few steps away. He lifts his voice a little and says, "Lock, let's both make it home." Lockdown stops. He doesn't look back, but his jaw tightens for a moment. His voice carries everything. He says, "Yeah, one more time." He disappears into the trees. Zach stands alone, then turns toward the HQ, towards his own battle. Inside the command center, at PAS HQ, dim emergency lights flicker. Glowing monitors display rift patterns and energy surge across Columbia. Everyone is tense. This feels like the calm before the end. Lynn's eyes scan coded data and pulsing blips. Zach stands nearby, pacing slowly, keeping alert. Lynn says into comms, urgent, "Brent, portals are forming near the elder tree, but HQ's readings are spiking too fast. This could be a split assault." Zach stopped pacing and now stands beside her, shoulders tightening as he listens, but he says nothing. Red warning glyphs flare across the holographic map. HQ's perimeter pulses brighter with every passing second. Zach's jaw clenches. His eyes narrow, a controlled inhale, then stillness. Lynn keeps relaying information, never looking toward him, her focus locked on the data and the team outside. Zach remains silent, a quiet, unmoving guardian, split between paths, moving on or staying put. Over at the elder tree, light filters through the ancient leaves. The air hums with quiet energy. A breeze rustles the canopy like a warning whisper. Mother Nature places a hand on the bark, whispering something like a prayer. Brent finishes calibrating a portal rift scanner, brow furrowed with focus. Lockdown adjusts his mic and cracks his knuckles, a steady rhythm in his breath. They guard the roots of the world, and what's left of its soul. At Plaza 700, students sit casually, laughing, eating lunch. Evening sunlight pours through wide glass windows. Trays clatter. Someone plays soft music from a phone speaker. On the trays of food, steam rises from mashed potatoes and veggie burgers. An apple rolls slightly, then stops. Then, all of a sudden, doors burst open. Kyle and a squad of PAS agents storm in. Kyle says, "Everyone stay calm. We're evacuating this campus immediately." Many students become alarmed. Some rise, confused. One asks, "Is this a drill?" Another films with their phone. Suddenly, the food twitches. The sandwich opens a mouth. Carrots fuse into writhing fingers. An entire pasta dish slithers across the table. Chaos erupts. Mouths scream. Students flee. The food attacks. Tray monsters lunging with claws made of lettuce and silverware. PAS agents fire light guns. Bolts of clean light burn holes through the darkness. Kyle says to comms, "We need backup. This isn't a food fight. It's a feeding frenzy." At the far end of the cafeteria, two elite harvest agents descend through a shadow portal, their armor black and veined with crimson rot. One wields a massive living cleaver that extends mid-swing, while the other carries a void net cannon, firing writhing shadow webs that slam into walls and tables and harden into barbed cages. A PAS agent says, shouting, "We've got elites! Watch the walls! That net sends you into the shadow realm!" Kyle spins, firing his light pistol and catching the edge of the living cleaver, making it screech and recoil. One of the barbed shadow nets lashes out from the void cannon, streaking toward him. He ducks just under it as it hardens against the wall behind him, cracking with dark energy. Kyle grabs a chair and hurls it at the void net agent, breaking his line of sight. Kyle says, gritting his teeth, "You want to drain someone? Drain this campus of your filth!" He body checks the void net agent into the wall, cracking his armor, as the PAS squad moves to cover him. Back over at the elder tree. The sun is setting. Drones hum overhead. The elder tree looms, glowing faintly. Brent crouches, checking the tiny light whistler in his hand. Lockdown watches with raised brows. Lockdown says, squinting at Brent's tiny device, Brent, You do realize we're about to fight a real-life shadow god, right? And that thing looks like a flashlight. Brent finally looks up, expression flat, and Brent says, "Don't you remember me using this at Slaughter City? It's got the light yield of an atom bomb in one blast." The sound of a massive drone approaching echoes in from the dark, carrying a sleek silver and black cannon with glowing rails. It lands beside Brent with a solid thud. Brent says dry, "And now, I upgraded it. Same light, bigger bite." He calmly slides the Whistler into the cannon's core. Gold light veins surge across the weapon like circuitry waking up. Raccoon perched on a crate with a nut in his mouth stares wide-eyed. Raccoon says chewing, "Okay, that's new." Lockdown says grinning and impressed, "Okay, that's better. But now it's too big. How the hell are you even gonna pick that up?" Brent interrupts a mid-sentence by casually lifting the entire cannon with one hand like it's nothing, then steadies it with both. Lockdown's grin freezes into disbelief. Brent says, now giving a faint smirk, "Anti-gravity stabilization. It's lighter than it looks. The hard part is aiming." The squirrel leans in suspiciously, and Squirrel says whispering, "I still don't trust that thing." Brent powers the cannon fully. The air vibrates around the elder tree. Lockdown says laughing, shaking his head, "Alright, now that's more like it." The team waits uneasily. Brent says, "It should have opened by now." The squirrel on Lockdown's shoulder whispers, "Maybe it's not happening today." Right then, a portal opens at the elder tree, but only a tiny one. A grotesque, rotten baby apple creature steps out. The raccoon says, "That's it? That's what y'all were scared of?" Mother Nature gasps. She says, "No, this isn't right." Brent stares at his screen. "These readings, it's a diversion." Minor enemies emerge and are fought back. Meanwhile, back at PAS HQ, a deep quake rumbles through the building. Light panels flicker, a low metallic groan echoes as if the entire structure is bending. Without warning, a vertical rift rips up through the central spine of HQ, jagged and uneven, glowing with rotting shadow light. The floor splits, desks slide, support beams snap like bones. Half the control room tilts inward, threatening to fall into the widening wound. Zack reacts instantly. Vines explode from his hands, bursting through the cracked floor and shattered walls. They lash onto anything still standing, outer frame steel, fractured pillars, overhead braces, exposed rebar, anchoring the surviving section of the room like a suspended platform. The rift widens again, a chunk of the building plummets into the void, sucked downward by shadow gravity. Zack grits his teeth and forces more vines into the outer walls, stabilizing their footing and keeping the satellite dish locked in alignment. Dust and broken glass rain around him. Lynn says into comms, shouting over alarms, "Brent, Kyle, HQ is collapsing! The core already tore through more than half the building! Systems are failing everywhere!" A console bursts into sparks behind them. Zack shields Lynn, gripping the floor as it tilts. Lynn continues, "And T-Bone Todd, he's heading straight for the campus!" Before Zack can even turn, the rotten core erupts outward through the rift. A pulsing mass of rotted fruit flesh and shadow veins smashing through the central shaft. Floors collapse, elevator rails twist like wire. Entire sections of HQ fall into the abyss below. Zack digs his fingers into the floor. Vines lash out, straining to brace the collapsing structure. Brent says over comms, breathless, still waiting for the battle, "All PAS elite agents, redirect to HQ. Repeat, half our forces, back up Lynn and Z-Man in HQ now." The HQ partially collapsing drowns Brent out, then a beat. Kyle overcomes, overriding, forceful. "Negative! Abort the order. All agents stay on mission. Elder Tree team, do not split." A tense pause. Then Brent says, gritted, "Copy." The core thrashes again, ripping deeper into the foundation. The control room wavers, hanging on a trembling net of vines. Lynn says, "Zack, hold it steady!" The room teeters, on the brink of collapse, suspended over the rift. Nothing left beneath it but broken beams and Zack's vines, trembling under the strain. The entire platform bucks hard, nearly tipping. Zack digs his fingers into the cracked floor, forcing every vine he can into the remaining supports. They whip and twist, fighting the shadow pull below. The core slams upward again, tearing away the last pieces of structure around them. Only Zach's living neck keeps the room from dropping straight into the void. Jaw clenched, he holds. 1 second. Then another. And another. Lynn's hand hovers over a glowing green emergency trigger beneath her console, her breath tight. The room hangs there, a floating fragment of HQ, held by nothing but vines from pure heart and will. Over at the Elder Tree, the portal grows larger and more figures crawl out, bigger, shadow beasts and demons, harvest agents. The Elder Tree looms behind them. Mother Nature stands before lockdown Brent and several PAS agents. Leaves swirl in the wind, tension thick in the air. Mother Nature says, "Protect the Elder Tree and every tree of life tied to it. If they fall, your world falls. I'll handle the Rotfather." She walks into the shadows, vanishing as a swirling vortex of roots and light carries her upward. The raccoon and squirrel exchange a glance. The squirrel hops off Lockdown's shoulder. The raccoon begins backing away toward the tree line. The raccoon says, muttering, "Yeah, we're more prophecy than combat." The squirrel says, already halfway gone, "Time to disappear." Lockdown says to Brent, smirking faintly, "Guess we're the roots now." Brent says, scanning the terrain, holding his massive light cannon, "Then I hope you brought fertilizer. This is gonna get messy. Also, this thing runs off of fertilizer or rot. Highly efficient, actually." Meanwhile, over at the university attack, most students have escaped. PAS agents are holding a defensive line. Then suddenly a massive crash. The ceiling cracks open. T-Bone Todd dives through it like a wrecking ball, wielding his grotesque, dripping giant turkey leg club. Then, a shadow blur. Carl crashes in through the side, snarling and wild, armed with 2 massive shadow cleavers. Carl says, roaring, "Where's your vegan hero now?" Shadow tendrils lash out across overturned tables. Food has mutated into snarling blobs. Carl rampages, sending chairs flying and crashing support beams. Tyler enters, panting, light flickering along his arm. His crystal bark powers pulse with faint energy. Tyler says, shouting, "Everyone move! Side stairwell, now!" A group of students, frozen in panic, turn and run for the exit. Carl notices, shadow rising like smoke around him. His eyes burn red. He growls like a beast. "Tyler, look at you, still chasing scraps!" Tyler helps a limping student to the exit, then turns, crystal and bark flaring up his arm. Carl steps up, arms crossed, and Carl says, smiling like he could taste the blood already, "You couldn't save Sharpo, Tyler. What makes you think you can save them from becoming meat?" He steps closer, voice dropping to a mocking whisper. "Come on, innocence is a lie. It ain't too late to come back. Quit playing this stupid vegan game." Tyler says low, steady, fist curling. His name was Sharno. "And I'm done letting you decide who gets to die anymore." Carl charges. Tyler blocks one hit, then is slammed into a vending machine by a shadow cloak punch. Glass shatters. Tyler stumbles forward, blood at the corner of his mouth. Just as Carl raises his fist again, Nikki bursts in through the opposite side, wearing a PAS vest and clutching a crackling staff. He charges awkwardly, swinging hard, but the blow goes wide, nearly pulling him off balance. Carl barely tilts his head as the staff whooshes past him. Nikki says, shouting, voice cracking, "Back off!" Carl smirks, unimpressed. He slaps the staff aside with one hand, sending Nikki stumbling. The staff clatters against the table. Carl says low and amused, "You don't even know how to hold it. Still playing soldier, huh?" Carl raises his cleaver for the finishing strike. Tyler surges back in, crystals blazing, slamming into Carl's side with a burst of light. The impact staggers Carl, buying a breath of space. Tyler says, snarling through blood, "You'll have to go through me first." Nikki scrambles to Tyler's side, shaking but standing. His grip trembles as he retrieves his staff. He plants himself between Tyler and Carl, wobbly but defiant. Nikki says, firm, forcing it out, "I was never your brother. I was just scared, but not anymore." Carl snarls and hurls the table at the stairwell exit. The stairwell door slams shut as the table hits the wall. Tyler, clutching his ribs, glances toward the closed door. Tyler says, breathless, half grinning, "The students, they made it." Carl turns back toward them, shadow coiling violently. Nikki moves beside Tyler, still shaky but refuses to run. Then Carl says, snarling, melting into a cruel laugh, "You think you saved anybody? Look outside!" He jabs a claw toward the shattered window. Outside, the camp is drowned in shadow rot. Harvest agents swarm. The same students Tyler tried to protect are now fleeing for their lives. Carl says, continuing,
"They're in our hands now."
Nikki and Tyler charge together. Tyler's light flashes against Carl's claws. Nikki thrusts his staff clumsily, nearly tripping, but it distracts Carl for a heartbeat. Carl finally overpowers them, slamming Nikki into the ground, shadow tendrils pinning Tyler against the wall. Back on the floor, unable to move. Nikki's hand trembles, but his lip twitches into a weak grin. Nikki thinks, "At least I stood my ground. That's more than I used to do." Carl reverts his attention to the rest of campus. He slashes through tables, demolishing PAS soldiers with berserker fury. T-Bone Todd laughs and sweeps his giant turkey leg into 3 agents. They go flying. Kyle sees a student left behind, cornered by shadow food. He sprints, pushing the student aside just in time. Kyle says, "Move!" Kyle turns, then T-Bone Todd swings his club like a wrecking ball. It hits Kyle dead center. He flies back through 5 concrete walls. Kyle's crumbled body lays there unconscious. Agents yell, chaos reigns. A shadow portal opens. The CEO steps through, impeccably dressed in decay luxury, his red glowing glasses reflecting the chaos. The CEO says, "The garden of indoctrination, wilted in seconds. Your students eat despair now, Todd. Bravo." CEO turns to Todd, and CEO says, "Now come, the elder tree awaits. Let's see how deep our rot can run." Todd grunts, licking meat juice from his knuckles. T-Bone Todd says, "Yes, sir." Carl watches from a rooftop, face twisted, and vanishes into a puff of black smoke. Multiple rifts open up by the elder tree. Through one, T-Bone Todd steps through. One in the sky, CEO floats through. And a bigger one on the ground. Giant mutated shadow centipede beasts the size of buses step through, with heads on each side of their body. And thousands of harvest agents are pouring out like a river of many different portals, filling the open field like an ocean of shadow spilling into the greenery. Shadows and shadow creatures, demons spill across the grass like smoke. The elder tree glows faintly behind the heroes. Brent fires a beam of soul energy from his high-tech PAS cannon. One of the beasts shrieks and disintegrates. Brent says, "Aim for the center mass. Disrupt the rot stream and they'll collapse." Between the smoking carcasses of the centipede beasts, an enormous harvest general emerges from a swirling portal. A towering figure clad in bone-plated armor, wielding a 12-foot-long shadow hammer bristling with shadow runes and dripping shadow sludge. The hammer slams down, cracking the earth and sending a pulse of shadow energy that blows Brent backward and flattens half a dozen PAS agents. Brent says, coughing and scanning, "His hammer! It's amplifying the shadow field. Every swing widens the rift." Lockdown's bass waves create vines that snap around his wrist as he steadies himself, eyes narrowing. Lockdown says through clenched teeth, "Then we take the hammer out of his hands." Brent recalibrates his cannon while Lockdown slides low, vines and bass reverberating as he charges toward the general. The general swings the hammer down toward Lockdown, but he rolls under the strike. The blow shatters the ground, leaving a crater of smoking rot. Lockdown whips a vine around the general's ankle, jerking him off balance. At the same time, Brent fires his cannon. A searing beam of light energy slams into the general's shoulder, staggering him. Brent says, calling out, "Now!" Lockdown leaps, mic crackling with sound, vines coiling, and slams both into the hammer. A deafening bass pulse erupts, the vine squeezing tighter as the sound shatters the runes along its length. The hammer screams, literally, as shadow sludge spills out. The head of the hammer fractures, then explodes into a shower of black shards. The general roars in fury, clutching the broken haft as its energy fades. Lockdown lands in a crouch, breathing hard. Then Lockdown says, panting under his breath, "Drop the base and the hammer." The general stumbles back, now disarmed, as Brent levels his cannon at him again. The general snarls, then slams a beacon into the ground. A shadow portal opens beneath him and swallows him whole before Brent can fire. Brent lowers his cannon slowly, scanning the area. Brent says dryly, "One less hammer, one less problem." Lockdown cracks his neck, grabs his mic again, and turns to the next wave of enemies. Bass and Vine's already beginning to hum around him as he charges into the fray. Mic in one hand, Vine spiraling around his other like a coiled whip of nature. He slides between two demon soldiers, dropping into a low stance, then unleashes a bass pulse shockwave that knocks several back into a glowing wave of sound and roots. Lockdown says, "Bass so loud it breaks your chains. I plant seeds where y'all bring flames." A demon says, snarling, stumbling back, "Keep talking, Leaf Boy. Your rhymes won't stop the bleeding." A massive boot slams down mid-insult, crushing the demon into a burst of oozing shadow. T-Bone Todd storms through the smoke, hulking and manic. He drags his smoking turkey leg club behind him like a fire-scorched anchor. With a guttural roar, he swings it in an arc, slamming it into Lockdown's side, sending him flying through a pile of debris. T-Bone Todd says, grinning, "Dinner's back on!" Lockdown punches the ground with his bass drop power, releasing a sonic wave that flattens 300 agents and pushes T-Bone Todd back 50 feet. Lockdown says, "Y'all just got dropped harder than your morals." From the fractured ground, 4 distinct demons rise, their bodies molding with tar-thick rot into sharper, more monstrous shapes. Each one moves differently, their steps leaving black ripples that pulse outward like shockwaves. Wrath, a spiked crimson veined brute, vibrating with rage, fists crackling like molten stone. Gluttony, a swollen drooling mass with too many jaws, tendrils snapping hungrily at the air. Resentment, tall and skeletal, its movements twitchy and bitter, eyes burning with old hatred. Apathy, a sagging shadow gray figure that drifts instead of walks, draining the light around it with every fold of its cloak. They spread out in a loose semicircle, hunting, surrounding, calculating. A single united thrum of rot shakes the ground beneath them. Lockdown says under his breath, "Here we go again." Brent shoulders his light cannon as Lockdown plants his boots. The tree's glow hums faintly in the background, but neither hero notices yet. Brent says grim, "Let's clear him out." Lockdown says, "On it!" A white-green blast erupts from Brent's cannon as Lockdown bass drops detonates the ground. The combined strike rips through the front line of demons, hurling their bodies across the battlefield. The demons splatter against rubble and collapse into black sludge for a heartbeat. Silence. But then, the sludge rides, swirling unnaturally fast. Within seconds, the demons reform, their bodies flickering like glitching shadows. Lockdown, blinking and panting, says, "Wow, what just happened? Last time they stayed like shadow pudding." Brent checks his scanner with one hand while blasting another demon that lunges too close. The readings spike. Brent says low and tense, "This isn't Slaughter City." Another blast, 2 more demons drop. 2 more reform almost instantly, stronger and more jagged than before. Lockdown says, gritting his teeth, "They're not even slowing down, man." Brent says, eyes narrowing at his scanner, "They can't just draw from the Shadow Realm anymore. The realms are merging. They're feeding off everything now. Every inch of this place is fuel." Lockdown's jaw tightens as another wave starts to circle them. Lockdown says, "So they're not just fighting us, they're eating the world." Brent says grim, "Yeah, and as long as this merge holds, they can keep coming." One of the reformed demons' wrath lunges forward, claws outstretched toward Brent. Its fingertips nearly graze him, but the Tree of Life reacts. A radiant root whip lashes out from the ground like lightning, slicing across Wrath's arm. The black flesh crumbles into shadow ash. For the first time, his arm doesn't grow back. Wrath says, shrieking, "No!" Brent stumbles back slightly, eyes darting between the thrashing demon and the glowing root. The scanner on his wrist flashes green instead of red for the first time the whole battle. Brent says half to himself, eyes widening, "But..." Lockdown glances over, breathing hard, still blasting shadows around them. Lockdown says confused, "But what, man? Spit it out!" Brent says, pointing at the tree, "The tree you guys love so much. It's got power over them." A second demon, Pride, skids too close to the tree's light. Its leg instantly dissolves into tar, and it collapses with a wail. Brent's face hardens, the tactical wheels turning fast. Brent says to Lockdown, "Lockdown, move with me." Lockdown, dodging a blast, says, Where exactly are we moving, Mr. Science Man?" Brent says, running along the flank, "Behind them. We line them up between us and the tree." Lockdown says, still confused but running, "Dude, what are we doing?" Brent says, grim with a smile, "Ending the respawn cycle." Brent and Lockdown sprint through scattered debris, sliding into position behind the demon line, so the Tree of Life looms directly in front of the demons. Behind the demons, the oncoming army of shadow agents, Todd, centipede beasts, and sludge waves. The 5 demons, gluttony, wrath, apathy, resentment, and pride, snarl as they sense they're boxed in. Lockdown says, glancing at the horde behind, "No pressure or anything?" Brent says, raising his cannon, "Blast them! Drive them into the light!" Brent fires his light cannon while Lockdown unleashes bass shockwaves in rhythm. "Blast them! Drive them into the light!" Brent fires his light cannon while Lockdown unleashes bass shockwaves in rhythm. Each synchronized hit hurls the demons closer to the tree. They melt into sludge, reform seconds later, but each time they reform, they're a few feet closer to the glowing roots. "They're just coming back," Brent says, focused. "Yeah, but every time they do, they lose ground." The 5 demons reform one last time at the base of the tree. The roots surge upward, twisting around them like radiant serpents. The demons writhe and scream, sludge bubbling from their mouths as their bodies break apart faster than they can reassemble. The demons say in unison, distorted, "No, not the tree!" The tree pulses like a giant glowing heartbeat. All 5 demons convulse violently and burst into steaming black tar, the ground shaking as their essence is absorbed into the light. The army behind them halts for a moment, even Todd flinching at the sudden shift. Lockdown says, wide-eyed, breathless, "Holy heavens, we actually did it." Brent says, steadying his cannon, "Not stop, delay, big difference. They'll respawn, just slower. 10 minutes instead of 2 seconds." The Tree of Life didn't save them. It only punished the shadows for stepping too close, and what retreated into the dark would not stay gone for long. Above the chaos, the CEO floats in the distance on a rig of shadow tech limbs, suspended just above the tree line near the battlefield. From his rig, long tendrils of corrupted code and shadow stretch down into the ground, pulsing like wires into the battlefield below. CEO says, mocking and calm, "You're just unpaid interns in my empire of blood." His eyes glint with menace as he twists a dial on his wrist. The HUD on his rig flashes shadow titanium mode, engaged. The black-red armor plating around his body thickens and locks into place. New vines of corrupted titanium glow faintly under the surface. The CEO says, murmuring to himself, "Time to collect." The rig releases him. He drops like a black meteor, striking down toward a cluster of PAS agents below. The CEO slams into the ground in the middle of the squad. A shockwave of shattered stone and shadow bursts outward as the agents are thrown aside like dolls. Without pause, the CEO lunges forward, moving with unnatural precision. His shadow titanium fists punch through the defenses of 2 agents at once, sending them crumbling into mud. One agent raises his weapon. The CEO catches it mid-swing, crushes it in his palm, and knees the agent hard enough to crack his armor. Another agent fires point blank. The bullets spark uselessly off his shadow titanium chest plate. The CEO grabs his shooter by the throat, lifts him, and throws him into a group of fleeing agents. The battlefield around him is chaos, PAS agents scrambling, shadows twisting underfoot, and the CEO striding forward through the carnage like a living blade. The CEO says, smirking, voice rising, "Let me show you what premium looks like." Lockdown turns, chest still resonating from the sonic blast. His grin fades. In the clearing near the elder tree, Brent rushes forward trying to recalibrate his tech, but T-Bone Todd barrels through the smoke, swinging his sizzling turkey club like a wrecking ball. Crack! The club slams Brent mid-air, sending sparks and light tech shards flying. Demons swarm in, shadow limbs curling around him as he hits the ground hard. Lockdown's eyes widen. Lockdown says, shouting, urgent, "Brent, hang on!" He breaks into a sprint, vines snapping under his feet. The centipede-like shadow beast, fused with flickering tech vines, crashes into the clearing, clearly under control from an extension of the CEO's shadow rig. Its twin heads shriek, blocking Lockdown's path. Lockdown stumbles backward, shielding himself from a rain of debris. Through the smoke, he squints, spotting Brent in the distance, barely upright, hunched over the shattered pieces of his cannon. Surrounding him, demons close in, claws glinting, shadows crawling. He lowers his hands, face hardening as the beat inside him deepens. Lockdown's eyes widen as he sees Brent slam to the ground. The sonic hum around him dies for a beat. He steps forward, voice like thunder on low volume. Lockdown says, low and serious, I'll bury you deeper than my bass drop. High above, in the sky, Mortem watches, unmoving, his expression unreadable. Below him, he can see the cafeteria burns with Carl at its center, shadows twisting like tendrils around crumbling beams. The elder tree pulses with unstable energy, shadows surrounding it. The PAS HQ nearly destroyed except one room still glowing with life. Mortem says, the fruit they once ate for sustenance now eats them. And in feeding the rot, they serve the roots of the world. Back inside the suspended control room at PAS HQ, everything is shaking. Dust pours from the ceiling in slow, steady sheets. Metal groans like it's being twisted by an invisible hand. Zach is still bracing the collapsing room with a massive spread of vines. But now they're splintering, fraying under the rotten core's violent movements. The rift below them widens another foot. A chunk of floor drops straight into the abyss. Lynn frantically scans the incoming feeds on the half-functional monitors. Lynn says, voice trembling, Zach, Plaza 700 is gone. The university gone. Downtown fully compromised. I can't reach Tyler. Kyle and Nikki signal dead. Another violent jerk. The entire suspended room drops several feet, dragged downward by the core's thrashing. Zach loses his footing. Zach says, no! He slams his hand to the ground to stop the fall, and something else bursts out of him. A jagged shockwave of dark, chaotic force erupts from his palms, rippling across the floorboards. Black currents coil up his forearms like liquid shadow. For a split second, Zach freezes, startled, and then green light flares from the same place, crashing into the darkness like a second heartbeat. The two forces collide in his veins. Neither wants to yield. For a breathless moment, they fuse. Zach begins to sing. New vines burst outward, thicker, sharper, some with shadow-darkened tips, latching onto collapsed beams from the shadow portal itself, and snaring the rotten core with renewed strength. Lynn turns, horrified. She says, Zach, your readings, your energy just spiked. Two overlapping... What are you doing? Zach doesn't respond, still singing. His whole body is shaking. He's pouring everything he has into holding the room together. Below them, the rotten core pulses with an ugly rhythm. Zach's vines pulse back at the same interval. Neither he nor Lynn notices the synchronization. A subtle, terrifying truth. Zach and the core seem to be linked. The room lurches again. Panels rip from the ceiling. Zach grits his teeth, fighting not to lose control. The vines begin to fray again. He is seconds from collapse. Back over at the Elder Tree battle. The battlefield is chaos. Only a dozen remaining PAS agents fight alongside Lockdown, surrounded by thousands of demon hordes, collapsing terrain and smoke. In the foreground, Lockdown stands firm, bruised and glowing faintly, with residual sonic light. One hand presses to the ground, holding back a centipede beast with vibrating base energy. In the background, T-Bone Todd barrels toward him. The CO Shadow Tech limbs loom from above, twitching and pulsing with red static. Sweat drips from his brow. Teeth clenched, his hands glow with sonic rhythm, but the beat is unstable, faltering under pressure. Lockdown says, grating his teeth, come on, just a little longer. Just then, a massive rift tears open above the Elder Tree. From within the swirling void, the Rotfather descends, cloaked in writhing shadow, dragging behind him a massive, spiked, mace-like cage. Cowboy Titanium hangs, limp, inside the cage. Below, the ground withers and cracks, trees blacken on contact. From the widening rift behind him, four familiar shapes reform out of the rot. The demon generals, wrath, apathy, gluttony, and resentment, restored by the Rotfather after Brent Lockdown slowed their respawn cycle. They're back stronger, angrier, and fully reborn. Then Lockdown yells in the direction where Brent was compromised, hoping he will somehow hear him. Brent! They're all back! All of them! Tell me you got a plan! You always got a plan! Brent! A burst of radiant roots erupts upward from the earth. Mother Nature rises, cloaked in golden green vines, her aura flaring like a divine shield. She slams down into the ground, and light ripples outward like a shockwave. Mother Nature says, shouting, "I found you. Hold your ground. Don't let the core devour these trees." Wind coils around Mother Nature's arm. Vines whip upward from the earth. Petals, roots, and shards of pure light spiral together, tightening into a growing core. A staff materializes in her grasp, alive with swirling energy. She raises it high. A bolt of higher realm lightning slams down from the sky into the staff. Its crystals flare with white, hot light. From the crystal at its tip of her staff, a cone of searing higher realm light blasts forth, sweeping across the battlefield, flooding it with blinding light. The light strikes the demon generals, and they reel back, hissing and snarling as their forms begin to waver. Their shadows shrink, their claws twitch with weakness. One tries to stand but disintegrates into mist. Another howls and vanishes into the cracks below. All 7 retreat, turning into the shadows, unable to fight in her light. The Rotfather stands tall, unmoved by the brilliance. He squints, slightly annoyed, then lets out a low, thunderous snarl of raw hatred, locking eyes with Mother Nature. His aura ripples with fury. Rotfather says, snarling,
"You dare shine that light on me?"
Mother Nature rises into the sky, vines swirling around her, wings of light unfurling behind her. Like a phoenix blooming from the forest, she launches upward, meeting the Rotfather in midair. Their collision ignites the sky, a divine being of rebirth crashing against the god of rot and ruin. The impact creates a shockwave that splits the clouds. They plummet back down like a meteor, smashing into the earth. Trees explode into splinters, and the ground shatters like glass beneath them. Without pause, they rocket back into the air, wild and fast, like a firework spiraling out of control. Mother Nature spins her body, summoning a vortex of petals, wind, and molten light. She lashes out with a whip of light and veined ivy, slicing across the Rotfather's torso. He snarls and retaliates. The Rotfather erupts with a wave of shadow, black flames, and rotted hands bursting from the space between dimensions. Screaming mouths form in the wave, spitting curses and poison smoke as it barrels toward her. She throws her arms forward, a circular wall of crystalline bark rising to intercept the attack. The shadow wave slams into it. The flash causes nearby mountains to quake and rivers to bend, evaporating mid-air. She pulls him upward, soaring into the higher realm, where beams of celestial gold pierce through aura-cloaked clouds. For a moment, her light burns into his form, his body hissing and sizzling. He lets out a chilling laugh, then opens his rotted palms. The light around him implodes, turning into a dome of darkness from within. Shadow-laced roots slither upward, wrapping around her limbs and yanking her downward like cursed vines. He drags her into the shadow realm, a plane of inverted color and seething decay. Monolithic bone structures jut from black skies. Eyeless creatures scatter as they pass, and demons whisper from the void. They shoot back up into the earth realm. The Rotfather swings a massive spiked chain behind him, at the end a colossal rusted cage mace containing cowboy titanium, bound and unconscious. The cage crashes down like a weapon of plague, slamming into a hill and instantly rotting it into black sludge. He swings again, and Mother Nature turns just in time to shield herself with a glowing brace of vine light. The cage hits her full force, blasting her backward. She tears through hundreds of trees, skidding through the forest floor like a comet, carving a massive trench in her wake. Mother Nature bursts outward in a storm of golden leaves, scattering shadows like shrapnel. She rises, planting her feet on invisible light, then claps her hands, summoning a rain of holy fire that chases the Rotfather back upward. He roars and punches open a portal mid-air. She answers by doing the same thing. We fall through flickering gates of light and shadow, one after another. Each shift causes reality itself to glitch. Day flashes to night. Stars spiral into roots, and oceans blink into ash as they brawl across dimensions. Back at PAS HQ, Lynn stares at glitching monitors. Lynn says, "Something's wrong. Comms are dead. Satellites bouncing back. Shadow readings." Lynn continues, "It's like Columbia's inside a different dimension. The shadow world isn't just leaking in. It merged. We're cut off." Back over at the Elder Tree fight, A howl of shadow rips through the air. A tendril lashes out and slams Brent into a jagged ridge, further away from his light cannon. Smoke rises. Brent doesn't move. He can't see the rest of the team. He's cut off and fighting for his life. A colossal centipede beast burrows toward Lockdown, shoving through the soundwave shield. Lockdown staggers, the baseline faltering as he fends off the advancing CEO, T-Bone Todd, and a storm of demons. All the surrounding PAS agents lie unconscious or buried under debris. Lockdown says, breathless and shaking, "Still got bass drop." Suddenly, a beam of pure light erupts from the side of the battlefield. Brent, limping and bloodied, appears atop a broken ridge, clutching a reassembled light cannon sparking with unstable energy. Brent says, shouting, "You're not dropping it alone!" Brent fires the cannon, explodes with brilliance, obliterating the centipede beast mid-lunge. The shockwave pushes back surrounding shadows, briefly clearing the space around the elder tree. Lockdown says, eyes wide, voice rising with renewed energy, "Let's go!" The sound barrier intensifies, forming a ring of resonant light and vibration that holds back the army's advance. Demons scream and flinch as the harmony rattles their shadow essence. But before Brent can reload, T-Bone Todd charges from behind and slams his turkey leg into Brent's side, sending him flying across the battlefield, crashing into the ground. Lockdown stares after him in horror. The baseline trembles. Lockdown says, roaring, "No, Brent! You stubborn genius!" Meanwhile, back at the interior of PAS HQ, or what remains of it, nearly the entire building has collapsed into the jagged rift. Only a single central room still stands, suspended by vines, roots, and splintered support beams, a last fragile island of stability. Z-Man stands at the center, arms extended, green vines whipping upward to hold the ceiling, while dark, shadow-laced tendrils snake downward to restrain the rotten core. He continues to sing to hold the core and the room in place. The room shakes. Wooden limbs of vine and bark reinforce cracked walls. Every inch of the structure groans under the strain. Below the room, the rotten core writhes through the vertical rift. A titanic, 300-foot-tall monstrous of rotted fruit flesh, corrupted roots, and biochemical shadow veins. Each pulse of its body makes the entire structure tremble. Shadow veins drag across the ruined floors of HQ, but they're held in place by black-green vines, shackled by Z-Man's merged energy. Every second is a war. Zack trembles, sweat dripping into the dust. One hand forces Vine outward to keep the room from collapsing. The other hand fused with ghostly black bindings buried deep into the rift, locking around the core like living restraints. Z-Man says, strained and whispered, "You're not going anywhere." Lynn sits at the last functional terminal, lit only by fallen green monitors and sparks from exposed wiring. Screens flicker between nightmare feeds. Elder Tree and Golden Shadow storms, university structure collapsing, streets tearing open as centipede units crawl out, PAS signals blinking offline one by one. Her lips tremble. Lynn says under her breath, "Shadow storms, centipede units, the Rotfather's accelerating everything." She taps to a new feed, a red alert, an overhead drone view, a quiet residential road outside Columbia. Her breath catches. Lynn discovers Carl. Lynn says sharply, "Wait." She zooms in. Carl the carnivore, clad in jagged shadow armor, charges down the road, smashing mailboxes aside, heading toward a single house. Lynn says, voice cracking, "He's heading to your son's house." Z-Man freezes, stopping mid-song. His entire body stiffens. The room shudders as his concentration slips, vines strain and crack. He looks at Lynn, then at the core, then at the collapsing room he's barely holding together. He knows the truth instantly. If he lets go, HQ dies. If he lets go, the core gets free. And if he doesn't let go, Carl reaches his son. Lynn chooses for him. Lynn meets his eyes, no hesitation, no fear, just heartbreaking clarity. She says, "Go to him, Zack." The vines creak, the core bucks violently beneath them. Zack says, "Lynn, if I go..." Lynn says firmly, "I said go!" Lynn slams the green button beneath her desk. A segmented metal shell snaps up from the floor, locking into a domed shield around her with a thunderous clang. Zack closes his eyes. Then, the upward vines unravel instantly. The ceiling caves. The entire suspended room collapses into the rift. Zack leaps forward as the platform disintegrates behind him. The rotten core surges free upward from the rift, smashing all the debris from PAS HQ onto the ground surrounding the portal. Now unrestrained, it erupts from the center, towering 300 feet, tearing through the remaining HQ skeleton. Its sludged roots and bone vines drag across the ground, devouring everything it touches. Ruined tech, rubble, metal framework, entire vehicles, segments of nearby buildings. With every consumed object, it grows, swelling, thickening, becoming a monstrous, mobile parasite. Veins of black corruption blast outward from its base, cracking roads, snapping streetlights, and spidering toward the direction of the elder tree. Like living fissures, it roars. The city between HQ and the elder tree trembles as the core crawls forward, consuming blocks at a time. Deep inside the rubble, sparks flicker. A muffled PAS armor activation hums under the stone and steel, and Lynn survived. Z-Man bursts from the collapsed HQ ruins, a streak of green light and shadow tearing across the pavement. He ignores the rotten core, the walking apocalypse behind him. He ignores the city crumbling in its path. He races toward the residential district, toward Carl, toward his son. His power is unstable, his heart pounding, his entire face cracking open. The core marches toward the world's lifeline. Z-Man runs toward his own. The rotten core slithers like a living apocalypse, a grotesque fusion of vines, rusted tech, and pulsing rot. It consumes downtown Columbia, dragging its festering mass through the heart of the city. Broadway, 9th Street, and the strip where Lockdown first freestyled with Zach, where Cowboy strummed his guitar, and where Zach once performed for tips, are now swallowed in its churning mob. Benches splintered, lampposts twisted into thorn spires, street murals faded beneath creeping black ooze. As the core rises toward the elder tree in the distant horizon, a faint glow flickers in the distance, the last remnants of life resisting decay. Suddenly, a group of police cruisers screech into view, skidding sideways in front of the advancing monstrosity. Officers jump out, guns raised, eyes wide with disbelief. A police officer shouts, "Hold the line! Don't let it pass!" The rotten core opens its mouth wide. They fire bullets, vanishing into the darkness. The rotten core opens its mouth wider, and hundreds of black veins stretch out rapidly and grab every police officer by their limbs and every car. Then, the rotten core pulls everything into its mouth. Nothing remains but shattered radios. Carl approaches Zach's son, cornering him in a dimly lit room, one hand dragging shadow across the floor like smoke. His eyes gleam with twisted glee. Carl says calm, condescending, "Your dad's a fraud, you know. All that singing, all that peace and love garbage won't save you now." He leans in closer, whispering like a snake, and continues, "Where's his big hero speech now? Where's the mighty Z-Man? Maybe he forgot about you, just like he forgot who he really is." The kid remains silent, eyes burning with quiet defiance. Then the kid kicks Carl in the shin. Carl immediately gets angry and viciously reaches toward him. Carl says, "You're just like him, weak." As Carl's fingers get inches from the boy, the leaf pendant around the child's neck glows with a sudden burst of golden green light. A light shield erupts outward in a sharp pulse, burning Carl's hand. Carl says, recoiling and screaming, "Ah! Ow! What?" Just then, a sonic blast explodes through the wall. Vines shoot inward like whips. Zach, half shadow, half light, stands silhouetted in the breach. Z-Man says, furious and focused, "Get away from my son." Carl lunges forward, but vines slam into his chest, pinning him against the wall with thorned roots crackling with residual green neon light. Z-Man strides toward him, guitar humming low. Carl snarls and rips free, shredding vines as shadows surge around him. Carl says, dark and grin, "There he is, the twig boy." Z-Man lashes another vine around Carl's ankle, yanking him in close. The sonic blast detonates point blank. Carl staggers but doesn't fall. Z-Man says through clenched teeth, "Back away." Carl smirks, stepping through the smoke like nothing happened, and Carl says low and venomous, "Your light's still weak. You think that tree, that guitar, those vines make you better than anyone else? You're still the same scared little boy, and everything you love will rot in front of you." Carl lunges, slashing 3 times in rapid succession. Z-Man blocks the first 2. The third tears across his chest, sending him crashing hard to the floor. Carl towers over him, shadows writhing around his claws. He says, "I can't decide what's better, watching you rot, or killing you right here and now." As Carl swipes his cleaver down for a killing blow, Zack's son screams, "Daddy!" Then, Z-Man's eyes flicker, a tremor of darkness spreads through his outline like ink and water. Crazy Man bursts out, a grin painted in shadow and mischief. He pops his head up as soon as Carl swings down, breaking the cleaver with his face. Then he grabs Carl by the ear with sharp precision. And Crazy Man says, leaning in close, "Ears up, Shadow Boy. Class in session. And oh, look at this. Page after page of F's. Cruelty, failed. Empathy, failed. Basic decency, extra failed. So let me walk you through our first lesson. Hands-on learning. Except the hands are vines, and they squeeze." He slams Carl face first into the wall, black and green vines spiraling outward to bind him. They snap tight like living chains. Carl says, snarling, "Get off me!" Crazy Man says, whispering wicked, "Shh, heroes are talking." Crazy Man flicks his wrists, and black vines wrap around Carl's mouth. Crazy Man flickers out. Z-Man remains, breathing hard but standing between Carl and his son. He kneels and puts his arms out, encouraging the boy to run to him. Z-Man says, "It's okay. I've got you." Behind him, Carl thrashes in the vines, trapped, the green glow from vines binding him, reflecting in his furious eyes. Z-Man stands, centered, tense but steady. Behind him, his son stares with wide eyes, frozen. Z-Man continues, and he says, "He came here looking for weakness. He found you instead. It's okay, bud." Tight on the boy's face, his eyes fill with tears, not fear, but relief. He hesitates for a breathless second. Then, the boy runs forward with full speed, arms outstretched. The son says, "Daddy." Z-Man catches his son in a tight embrace. His arms wrap around the child protectively as vines continue to pulse behind him, sealing Carl's prison even tighter. Z-Man says, "I've got you. Always." The boy's face presses into his father's shoulder. Safe now. Z-Man closes his eyes, holding him like the world is crumbling. But this moment matters more than anything. Back at the elder tree, Lockdown collapses to his knees, winded amid wreckage and smoldering dirt, breathing heavily. In the far distance, a towering shadow mass barrels toward them, the rotten core, 1,000 feet tall now, devouring entire forests like dust. Lockdown whispers, "No, it's coming." T-Bone Todd and the CEO slowly stalk toward Lockdown, shadow and weapons drawn. A faint crackle of shadow energy still lingers between them from their earlier duel. Rocks and splinters of earth scatter around their feet. T-Bone Todd says, grinning, gripping his greasy turkey leg club with eyes that still burn with resentment, "Nowhere left to run, DJ Snack Pack. Your band's broken up." The CEO says, looming, eyes gleaming with shadow tech, adjusting his wrist as if to remind Todd who won. "Let him crawl. After today, I will be second in command, just below the Rotfather himself." Todd glares at him, his knuckles whiten on the drumstick. He slams a turkey leg into his other palm, sending a spray of grease to the ground. Todd takes a few swaggering steps toward the Tree of Life, his greasy drumstick still in hand. Shadows hiss and recoil as he approaches the glowing roots. T-Bone Todd says, grinning, "No, I'll eat the tree he protects, and maybe I'll be the one the Rotfather crowns next." Todd reaches out with his free hand. A blinding flash erupts from the bark, pure white light flaring like a sunburst. Todd screams and jerks back, clutching his blistering fingers. CEO says, cold, calm, almost bored, "You fool. Not even the Rotfather can touch those trees. Only the rotten core can." Todd snarls, his burned hand smoking, eyes blazing with humiliation and rage. The CEO doesn't flinch. T-Bone Todd says, shaking his scorched hand, voice cracking with rage. Why didn't you tell me? That tree would burn my hand off before he walked up here. He snarls, stepping closer, still clutching his hand. And you, second in command, you're barely a manager of rot. CEO says, sneering and calm. I didn't tell you, because watching you scream was the highlight of my day. A tense beat. Todd suddenly hurls a jagged boulder toward the CEO. The CEO smirks, deflects it with a shadow-clad black hand, then sends a shard of rock spinning back toward Todd's feet. The two circle each other, striking at the rubble and dirt around them, the rivalry simmering even now. Lockdown, still kneeling in the dirt, lurks between them, equal parts tired, confused, and mildly entertained. The glow of the elder tree flickers behind him. He tilts his head like, are y'all serious right now? They are really about to throw hands in front of the world-ending, man-eating fruit? T-Bone Todd says, muttering as they trade blows. Should have been me. That trial was a farce. We both know it. CEO says low, taunting. You tied me, Todd, and I've been here longer. Deal with it. A quake splits the ground behind them. Trees collapse in the distance as the rotten core stampedes forward. A monstrous vortex of rot, writhing faces and screaming souls. T-Bone Todd says, grumbling, then louder, finally breaking off his sparring to turn toward the sound. This wouldn't be happening if you just let me finish Z-Man at the gala. Rotfather said he's got power over the core. But no, you wanted a show. The CEO says, as he also turns, you weren't supposed to say that in front of him. T-Bone Todd's shrugging. What? He's dead meat anyway. Their bickering cuts off as they both freeze, staring ahead. The rotten core crashes into view, blotting out the sky. T-Bone Todd says, shouting, now fully alert. It's here! Lockdown slams his fist into the ground and yells, Face drop! A sonic shockwave explodes outward, launching Lockdown back as the rotten core's jaws descend like a collapsing sky. The elder tree, T-Bone Todd, and CEO, and surrounding shadows are swallowed in an instant. Darkness ripples outward as the earth shatters beneath them. In the wake of the elder tree's destruction, the battlefield is silent for half a beat. Then the rotten core surges outward like a black tide. Its massive vines whip and claw across the ruined ground, snatching hundreds of harvest agents still scattering in the chaos. One by one, they're dragged screaming into the core's maw. Their weapons and armor dissolved into sludge before vanishing into the darkness. Whole squads try to retreat through the shadow portals, but the core's vines lash faster, catching most before they can escape. Only a handful of elites manage to step through their portals at the last second. The last one's yanked back mid-step, his portal collapsing behind him. The hillside trembles underfoot as the core grows larger and darker, feasting relentlessly. The air is thick with the sound of crunching armor, muffled screams, and the ground roaring of the core itself. Far away on a cracked hillside, Lockdown stumbles to his feet, coughing, battered. He watches in horror as the rotten core devours everything. Every last tree, every leaf, every blade of grass. Lockdown says softly, I was too late to save the trees, but I can still tell Z-Man. He limps away into the fading light. Back at Mother Nature and Rotfather's fight. Mother Nature is mid-duel with Rotfather. She suddenly winces, gasping. Her light falters. Mother Nature says, strained, the elder tree, it's gone. Back at Zack and his son. Zack holds his son tightly, safe for now, but he flinches. A sudden deep pain hits his chest. He whispers to himself, my tree of life. What? Something's wrong. In the higher realm, clouds ripple with divine energy. Mother Nature hovers above a glowing ley line of light, hands outstretched. The Rotfather stands below, hunched, his rot pulsing with malice. The wind howls. Mother Nature says, commanding, enough death, enough decay. I won't let you swallow this world. She slams her palms together, and a tsunami of pure elements rise behind her. A towering wall of water, stone, fire, wind, and crystal light. It roars like a beast as it crashes toward the Rotfather, glowing with divine fury. The Rotfather growls, arms wide, as the elemental tsunami nears. He corrupts it with a wave of his hand. It twists into a monstrous tidal wave of black sludge. Screaming blood-mouthed demons and broken bones. The rock-soaked wave lunges back at her like a living horror. She doesn't flinch. Mother Nature dives straight through the abomination, the light tearing a clean path through it. Demonic arms snap at her heels as she emerges on the other side, trailing debris like a comet. She sweeps her arms outward, and the debris begin to spiral. Wind and shards of elemental force whip into a massive tornado. Stone, leaf, ember, and shattered root spin into a towering funnel around the Rotfather. Mother Nature says, roaring, "Be undone by the very forces you betrayed!" The Rotfather is trapped in the tornado, spinning violently as lightning crashes into him repeatedly, each strike burning shadow from his skin. His chains thrash wildly, the air cracks. With a final strike, the tornado launches him upward, ripping him back toward the higher plane. He slams into the sky like a meteor thrown in reverse. The air stills. Mother Nature floats upward after him, eyes narrowed, breathing heavy. Her body glows with purpose and exhaustion. In the higher realm, Mother Nature channels radiant vines and pure light energy. The Rotfather's form trembles. His corrupted flesh begins to crack, and within it, a soft golden glow emerges. His voice falters, barely a whisper. The Rotfather says, weakened,
What is this?
Mother Nature says, the truth behind your pain. The light you were before the rod. A faint angelic silhouette flickers beneath the ground. His chains hang loose for a moment. Something stirs, not rage, not remorse. Mother Nature places her hand gently on his chest, glowing vines spiraling around them both. Her expression is full of grief and hope. Suddenly, from the shadows of the higher realm, Mortem appears behind her, silent and surrounded by shadow. Mother Nature says, "Mortem, now, help me bring back who we've lost." Mortem stands motionless, silent, unmoving. The higher realm wind howls around them, waiting. Mother Nature says, shouting, "Mortem, now!" Still nothing. Mortem's silhouette does not shift, not even a breath. Mother Nature says, voice cracking, "Mortem!" Mortem says, calm and unblinking, "The Rotfather does not need saving. It is you, Mother Nature, who wanders lost." Mother Nature's eyes widen, grief, disbelief, and ancient sorrow folding into her voice. Mother Nature says, "Mortem, no! You were the dawn bearer, the one who shone before any star, the shadow you were. It is not who you are. Not this hollow rage, not this bitterness. Remember the light that shaped you. Remember why you stepped into the darkness with him. You went to save him." Mortem says, cold, "Your compassion always blinded you to consequence." Mortem's hand hovers just inches from Mother Nature's back. His fingers tremble faintly, and for the briefest moment, his cold eyes soften as though remembering who she was to him. Then Mortem says low, almost a whisper, "You should have made me stay in the light." His hand tightens into a claw. Whatever trace of remorse flickered vanishes. A brief moment of realization crosses Mother Nature's face, but it's too late. Mortem places his skeletal hand against her back. Her light spasms. She convulses, the glow in her eyes dimming instantly. The Rotfather says, snarling as light fades,
"Your denial, it's finally cost you everything."
The Rotfather grabs her body as she drops and dives downward, corrupted light flaring around them both. They crash from the higher realm like a meteor, riding her body through the sky like a twisted star falling to Earth. Back at Lockdown, Lockdown stumbles through a decimated street, shadows licking at his boots. Rotting tendrils ooze from cracked pavement. He pants, covered in bruises and ash. Lockdown says, gasping, "The whole city's gone dark. Except... What's that?" In the far distance, a single green beacon pulses softly in the dark, a suburban house, untouched. The trees gently sway with a faint life energy. Lockdown says in awe, "Zach." Above the skyline in the distance, the rotten core's grotesque faces turn as one. It sees the light. The rotten core says as a chorus of voices. It lurches forward at impossible speed, blotting out the landscape. Buildings collapse in its wake. Lockdown glances back, seeing it coming, eyes wide with panic. Lockdown says, screaming, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me!" He sprints faster than ever, using burst after burst of sonic blasts to boost his speed and leap rooftops. He barrels through fences and dodges rot vines snapping at his heels. Back at Zach and his son,
Zach kneels beside his son on the couch. The boy leans against him, clutching his sleeve. His son says quietly, "Daddy, is the world ending?" Zach says, softly, "Maybe. But not for you. Not while I'm here." Behind them, from the hallway, the door creaks. Zach spins instinctively, vines raising defensively until he sees her, his ex, bruised, rope burns on her wrists. Stepping into the room, she says, "Carl tied me up in the basement. I just got free. What's happening?" Zach gently rises, his eyes narrow as the ground begins to rumble. Zach says, "Stay with him. Don't open the door unless it's me." Zach walks to the porch. All around, rot darkness. Only the house remains untouched. The horizon ripples like liquid. Then he hears it. Lockdown barrels down the street toward the house, barely upright, torn and bleeding. Behind him, the rotten core looms like a collapsing planet, shredding forests and homes with each lurking step. Suddenly, a shadow crashes down from the heavens. The Rotfather descends from the sky, riding Mother Nature's limp form like a falling star, his arms whipping the chain cage outward. The spiked cage stretches on a grotesquely long chain, hundreds of feet, swinging wide like a demonic pendulum as he descends. The Rotfather says, roaring,
"Let the darkness in!"
Zman reacts instinctively. Vines explode from the earth, forming a living wall. The shadow cage mace slams against it with a deafening crash, rattling metal and warping shadow energy through the impact. Lockdown crashes near Z-Man, gasping. Z-Man turns just in time to send Vines to catch Lockdown. He skids through the dirt and ash. Z-Man looks over at him, panic in his face. Lockdown looks up and says, "Zach, listen." Z-Man props him up slightly. Lockdown grips his collar, whispering urgently, blood at the corner of his mouth. Lockdown says, barely conscious, "I heard them. CEO and Todd. You're linked to the core. You've got power over it. That's the key, man. You're the key." Z-Man looks toward the rotten core, its grotesque body pulsing, watching in the far sky behind him. The Rotfather's burning silhouette descends like a cursed comet, nearing impact. A massive shadow vine lashes out from the rotten core, snapping onto Lockdown's ankle. The motion is instant. Lockdown looks directly at Z-Man and says weakly, "Kick his ass." Zach lunges for him, but the vines yank Lockdown backward violently. Lockdown is dragged across the earth. His hands nearly touch Z-Man's. In the background, the core's gaping mouth opens wide like a festering pit. Z-Man says, screaming, "Lockdown!" The ground quakes violently. A shockwave erupts from the Rotfather's impact point, a thunderous detonation of force between Z-Man and the rotten core. Ash and dust billow upward in a blinding swirl, engulfing the battlefield. A gaping crater smolders in front of him, earth shattered like glass. Zach shields his eyes. The sky above flickers with red lighting. Z-Man starts to run to the house to shield his son and ex. He slams his hand to the floor. Vines burst up from the earth, wrapping around the house in a protective living dome made of bark, branches, and glowing green leaves. The Rotfather says from outside, roaring,
"You can't dam the flood forever. Let it drown you. Let the darkness in."
The Rotfather swings the massive shadow cage like a wrecking ball, slamming it into the dome. It splinters but holds. Z-Man bursts back outside as the Rotfather prepares for another swing. Z-Man raises a wall of trees, thick trunks and twisted limbs, thickening the dome. The cage crashes into the trees and snares. It's caught in the branches mid-swing, rattling above the battlefield. Z-Man leaps toward it, arms glowing, bursting through the shield he made to reach the cage outside. Z-Man says softly, "I got you." He reaches through the vines and touches Cowboy Titanium inside the cage. A soft green glow spreads from Z-Man's hand. The shadow chains retreat in a hiss of smoke. Cowboy's eyes flicker open. He glows steel blue and white hot. The shadows around him scatter. Cowboy says, rising, "'Bout damn time." With a roar, Cowboy bends the cage open and leaps out, planting his fist into the Rotfather's face. He lands a flurry of punches. Cowboy says each hit, "This is for Mother Nature! This is for Lockdown!" This is for every animal in Slaughter City! The Rotfather catches his fist, then lifts Cowboy Titanium off the ground with one hand, choking him. The Rotfather says, snarling,
How pathetic divine titanium becomes against the oldest shadow.
Cowboy says, gritting his teeth, this divine titanium is far tougher than your rot. Not even you can kill me. Behind him, a skeletal figure appears in a swirl of shadow and rot. The Rotfather says,
You're right, but he can.
Mortem appears behind Cowboy Titanium, expression unreadable. Mortem whispers, I hoped it wouldn't come to this, but hope rots with everything. His fingers glow black as they press against Cowboy's back. Cowboy struggles, his arms crack, glowing, black smoke pours from Mortem's touch. Cowboy says, choking, shocked, Mortem, you were one of the light. You used to protect us. You used to protect life. Mortem's hand glows with dark energy. His face is unmoved, a calm reaper in the storm. Mortem says, cold. Even suns collapse when left in the deep darkness of reality. Cowboy's limbs begin to fracture. His body glows and smokes as he grits his teeth. Cowboy says, defiant and pained, then I'll crack, leaving a dent. He turns his head to Z-Man one last time. His eyes soften, and Cowboy says softly, go make some damn music. Cowboy's extended hand slips down to his side, motionless. Then he turns to dust. Zack says, screaming, no! Hundreds of feet away in a crater, Mother Nature lays badly wounded. She gasps, clutching her chest as a tear falls from her eye. Z-Man plants himself before the glowing greenhouse, arms spread wide. The Rotfather lunges again, swinging the shadow cage like a grotesque war mace, each impact crashing against Z-Man's light-woven vine shields. Z-Man staggers back under the blows, forming new shields as fast as the old ones shatter. Step by step, retreating toward the vine-fortified dome encircling the house. The Rotfather says through the rotten core, booming,
She lied to you. I did not. I was left. I called out to her in the dark. She never came. I embraced the silence. I became something stronger.
The rotten core says, continuing,
She called it corruption, but it was an evolution.
Zack grips his chest as if the voice echoed from inside him. He reinforces the wall again and again from towering trees, each one shattered on impact. The Rotfather says, taunting from outside the dome,
Save your son, or save the world. You cannot have both.
Zack's hands tremble, the vines strain. His eyes flicker between the house and the apocalyptic core. His son stares up at him, whispering, Daddy. Zack closes his eyes, and then he says, I won't save one. I will save both. The sacred guitar on his back lifts into the air, glowing neon green. It hovers before him, untouched but alive. Strings vibrate. The wind shifts. Vines explode from beneath the house, lifting it skyward. Light wraps around Zack and spirals, like strands of DNA. Shadow energy coils around his arms, Crazy Man's power returning. Rotfather stands massive, staring at the house, antlers scraping the dark sky. He doesn't rise with the house and the vines. Instead, he lowers both arms, palms out. A torrent of black rot steams downward like a waterfall's shadows. The rotten core shudders violently. Its flesh swells, cracks splinter wider. Black geysers erupt from its veins, surging with unnatural force. The core's voice deepens, layered now with the Rotfather. He did not chase the hero. He fed the rot. The Rotfather's face, grim and steady, shadows pouring like rivers from his body, the core bulging on earth, ribs stretching outward. Then the Rotfather says through the rotten core,
We are the same.
As the house and Zack ascend, the air howls like a hurricane. Tiles rip from the roof and whirl around him. Window panes shatter outward as vines wrench the house upward. Rotten wind slams against his face, carrying the stench of spoiled fruit and sulfur that makes his stomach twist. Inside his chest, his heartbeat pounds louder than the storm, but it's not just his. A second rhythm lurks beneath it, darker, hungrier. Zack thinks, I feel it again. The shadow's stronger now, and it feels good. Too good. This isn't just me fighting it anymore. I'm using it, needing it. If I let it go... He cuts off the thought, jaw clenching as a loose shutter clings behind him. The light in his chest sputters briefly as his aura flares violently, green and black colliding in chaotic bursts, snapping vines and tearing shingles free. He floats into the air, eye level with the rotten core now, one end raising to the house, carrying his son, the other toward the monster. The rotten core lifts a giant rotten vine half a mile long. Its mouth splits wide, but the voice that follows isn't just the core's voice, synchronized with the Rotfather, layered like a cosmic echo across time and decay. The Rotfather says through the rotten core,
We are the same. I was your first breath in the shadows, that ache in your bones when hope failed you, the silence when no one came.
Zack's face tightens, his aura flares, both green and black flickering violently, colliding like a storm caught between life and rot. The Rotfather continues through the core.
You call it power, but you only borrowed it from me. You can't kill me without killing the part of you I awakened.
Zack hovers in midair, his body glowing with an unnatural duality, pulsing green from Zman, oozing shadow from Crazy Man, but it's not symmetrical. His skin flickers in irregular patches, a glowing forearm here, a shadow-slick cheek there. His eyes blaze with mismatched colors, one radiant emerald, one swirling black like a storm. His hair floats upward, caught in invisible wind. Tangled strands glow green at the roots and black at the tips. Writhing like vines in smoke, his guitar levitates beside him, spinning slowly, its body wrapped in roots and faint skull-shaped etchings. Light and darkness swirl around him in chaotic spirals, constantly shifting. He's not one or the other, he's both, and barely holding it together. Rotfather says, grinning.
Yes, that's it. Sink deeper. Let go of your name, your guilt. Become what I became.
His voice becomes thunderous, echoing inside Zack's mind.
Into balance. Be the new beginning. Be like me.
Zack's body twists violently in midair. Z-Man begins to sing. Z-Man's singing falters, and his body twists violently in midair. His skin turns pitch black like obsidian glass, cracked with glowing red veins. His veins pulse outward, splitting his form with jagged shadow lines. Darkness forms around him and bursts. His teeth sharpen, his voice distorts with layered tones, as if multiple versions of him are speaking at once. His green aura is snuffed out completely. What remains is monstrous, familiar. The shadow he once fought wasn't chasing him. It was becoming him. A future he once feared. Zack's shadow self says,
I see it now. You weren't haunting me. You were waiting for me.
A single tear steams down Zack's darkened cheek, glowing green even against the shadow. He grits his teeth, and with a scream of pure soul, Z-Man roars, But I'm not you. I'm not the end. I'm the seed! Light erupts from within him. He begins to sing again. Vine sound waves and blinding green energy crack through the black like life breaking free from rot. Zack floats, eyes blazing green, breathing heavy. One hand glows with green light, the other drips with living shadow. His aura stabilizes for the first time, a spiral of black and emerald weaving around him like a living yin-yang. Z-Man and Crazy Man, two halves of me. One fights with love, one fights with fury. Together, we fight for life. Crazy Man's control over the shadows freezes the core in place. Spectral chains lash around its body, holding it still. Then Z-Man's vines surge, bursting through the core's flesh. At the same time, green vines snake through the cracks in the core, but they don't just warp it, they revive it from the inside out. From deep within the core, buried trees of life begin to glow again. They grow rapidly, exploding out of the core's rotten shell like flowers through cement. Trees of life erupt faster and grow larger from within, roots of compassion and resistance punching outward from its hollow heart. The rotten core shrieks. The Rotfather says, screaming, falling out of his merge with the rotten core.
No! We were linked! Every bloom only delays me. I will return tenfold.
Every burst of life tears off a chunk of the core, and in its place, what was once devoured is restored. Z-Man channels his healing power into the rotten core, restoring it and everything it ever consumed back to life. Piece by piece, the 1,000-foot monstrosity unravels in a rainstorm of color, light, and reborn creation with every note. Z-Man continues to sing. From the core's collapsing body, pour vibrant green trees, blooming wildflowers, shattered cars reassemble with vines wrapped around them, and people once lost, gasping, blinking as if waking from a long dream. Birds erupt from the core in spiraling flocks. Grass spreads like fire across the sky. The air itself glows with hues of emerald golden, a spectrum of colors. A flood of life raining from rot. A forest erupts from the core's surface, full trees, animals, even buildings, pieces of Columbia starting to rebuild itself mid-air as green magic dances across the sky. From one collapsing mass, a figure falls. Lockdown, motionless, curled in on himself like a fallen star. Zack's eyes glow brighter. His vines wrap around Lockdown mid-fall, gently lowering him. Lockdown gasps, alive, his body healed by Z-Man's song, and the core is unraveling. He clenches his chest and blinks. Lockdown says soft, "Damn, I saw the music." The core screams, withering. The Rotfather staggers. Rotfather lands on the ground, furious in pain. He says,
No, the pain. I feel it all. I feel it all.
His body contorts in agony. Every strike against the rotten core ripples through him like a nerve set on fire. Zack's face is calm, solemn. He slowly lowers the floating house, descending with it and the collapsing core. The vines spiral downward like sacred threads, placing everything gently onto the earth. What remains of the rotten core contracts, shrinking, shriveling into a single, pulsating, fist-sized shadow apple. Zack's form shifts, his veins darken, shadows and leaves swirl around him in chaotic spirals. He is no longer Zack, he is Crazy Man. Crazy Man kneels. He lifts his shadow apple, staring into it like it's speaking to him. He starts to open his mouth. Then, Brent bursts through debris, panicked and limping. Brent says, shouting, "Zack, don't! If you eat that thing, I swear, you'll never work with PAS again!" Crazy Man slowly turns his head toward him, eyes wild, mouth twitching. A crooked smile stretches across his face. Then Crazy Man says, unhinged, casual, "What? It's vegan!" Before Brent can react, Crazy Man lifts the apple to his mouth, wide, unnatural. Brent says, lunging, "Zack, stop!" Crazy Man bites down. Then suddenly, a black-green shockwave throws Brent 20 feet away as the earth rips open beneath them both. A shockwave of corrupted energy rips through the landscape, vines and stone exploding outward. Zack is hurled backward, a streak of green and black. He slams into the ground, carving a massive crater. Earth cracked, steam rising from scorched vines. As the rotten core fully disintegrates, scraps of shadow explode outward, some being launched miles away. And from the fractured ground, T-Bone Todd groans and tries to stand. The CEO stumbles beside him, eyes wide, silent. The Rotfather kneels just off in the distance, just wincing off the pain of losing the core. He scans the area to see the heroes regrouping, and to see Mother Nature herself still standing, meeting his eyes, still with light in hers, wounded, but still shining. Rotfather growls, then a swirling black vortex opens behind the Rotfather. The shadow portal, howling like wind through bone. It begins to suck in every remaining demon and shadow force. The Rotfather limps into view, snarling, and he says in a fierce growl,
Cease this failure, both of you. Return to the realm. Regroup. We will let their wounds fester, infections that favor our rot in the future battles.
The tendrils tighten, pulling Todd and the CEO toward a swirling portal of shadow behind the Rotfather. Todd screams as tendrils pull him into the portal. CEO does not scream, does not resist. He simply adjusts his glasses and steps backward into the portal, while the shadow tendrils latch onto him and slowly pull him in. He leaves calmly, coldly, like a man walking out of a meeting. From far off, at the vine-wrapped house, one final tendril slithers through the ground. It snakes inside through a crack in the floor, wraps around Carl, still struggling against his bindings. Carl says, screaming, "Wait! No! No! Not me too! Let me stay! Let me fight!" Carl is yanked violently into the darkness, dragged backward by the vine, his body twisting and vanishing into the swirling portal with the others. The portal seals, leaving only silence and rot-stained ground. Mother Nature stumbles forward, her body dim and bruised, but her aura is still radiant. She walks to the crater Zack is in, kneels. The vines part like water. As Mother Nature kneels beside Zack, her hand glows faintly as she reaches into her folds of her robe and pulls out a small, cracked seed. Dark on one side, glowing faintly green on the other. Mother Nature says softly,
"We won the battle, but the power you called on burned itself out. It may never return to you."
She places a seed in his hand. Mother Nature continues,
"This was your tree of life. All that remains now."
Zack stares at the seed in silence. His fingers curl around it. The seed pulses once, then goes still. The crater still smokes faintly, vines curling along its rim. One by one, the surviving heroes appear, bruised, dirt-covered, but standing. They slowly descend into the hollow, surrounding Z-Man and Mother Nature. Brent stands at the edge of the crater, arms crossed, watching Z-Man in silence. His expression is unreadable, but his tone is cold. Brent says quietly to Kyle, "He saved us, but that shadow's in him now. We can't trust what he'll become." Kyle says nothing. He just lowers his gaze and nods. Zack lies on his back in the crater, eyes fluttering open. He groans and slowly props himself up, gripping the vine-wrapped earth beneath him. His body is scorched in places, his suit tattered, his breathing labored. Zack says low, gritting, "Still here." Lockdown limps into view, face swollen, clothes torn. He stumbles, catches himself on one knee beside Zack. Lockdown says raspy, half joking, "You know, I almost missed you." Zack gives a tired chuckle, then reaches out without thinking, hand glowing faintly. He places it gently in front of Lockdown. Nothing, no glow. Zack thinks to himself, "Oh, right. No healing powers. That part of me is gone now. Guess I'm just a guitar guy now." He pulls his hand back. Lockdown pats him on the shoulder. Then Lockdown says softly with a nod, "Then play it loud, man." Minutes later, Brent and Kyle run to PAS HQ to find Lynn and Tyler and a number of other PAS agents who survived. Shadow Tech reset beacons embedded in craters begin to glow faintly. Black tendrils slither across shattered roads and crumbled buildings as if they retract. The city seems whole again. Windows uncrack, pavement smooths, street lamps straighten. The people dazed wake up as if from a long nightmare, staring at clean sidewalks and blue sky as though nothing happened. Faint whispers of rot fade into silence. They don't want the world to wake up. They just want it quiet, forgetful, obedient. Unlike the city, the remains of PAS HQ still sit in ruins. Here, the reset beacons do nothing. Their faint light pulses over the wreckage and then moves on, ignoring it entirely. The ground is scorched in patches where vines and shadow collided. Kyle, Brent, Nikki, Tyler, and Lynn stand in the rubble, silent. Kyle crouches, sifting through debris until his hand clutches a jagged fragment, a piece of Z-Man's tattered suit, still fused to cracked vine. He holds it up, watching it catch the faint morning light. Lynn glances at him, her face unreadable. Brent crosses his arms, muttering, "Figures. They don't bother fixing what belongs to their enemies." Kyle finally straightens, brushing dust from his hands. He tucks a fragment under his arm and turns toward the horizon. Kyle says low, almost to himself, "We remember, even if they won't." Brent forges together a working radio and screen from the debris. Brent says, "There's still dozens of teams out there. I'm going to send them on cleanup duty across town." Nikki says, "Don't you mean here at HQ? Since it's, literal rubble now?" Brent says, "No, there are shadow traces out there from the core. We need to make sure it's all gone. I can see it here still. Deep shadow energy traces across the city." Kyle says, "Yeah, but we should still send at least one squad to help us here. I mean, look at this mess, Brent." Mid-sentence, Brent cuts him off as he throws down a cube that sucks up the rubble and tech fragments. Kyle and the others gasp in surprise and amazement. Kyle says to Brent, "Brent, I am grateful you always carry a unnecessary amount of gear with you." And then Brent says, "No need for a squad. I highly suggest we relocate our HQ somewhere else, less detectable. And I'm pretty sure everything we can get is still pretty damn necessary at this point." Kyle nods, and then Kyle says, "Very well. Where shall we relocate then, Brent?" At the edge of town, by the elder tree, Mother Nature rises slowly, looking around the city as it rebuilds. Mother Nature leans against the elder tree, breath heavy, her hands pressed to her back. Dark shadow sludge sweeps down her back where Mortem struck her. She winces as she touches her wound. She watches the reset beacons work their quiet lie across the city. For the first time, her expression falters, a flicker of fear in her eyes. Mother Nature says softly,
Let them think it's over, while it's just begun.
Meanwhile, back at Zach and his son, Zach stands before his ex. She sighs, softening. She says, "I see how hard you fight for our son. You can have him this weekend." Zach smiles, holds his son's hand. They now walk up to his apartment. An eviction notice is posted on the door. Zach thinks to himself, "Guess skipping shifts to fight demons finally caught up to me." Lockdown is in the living room. Lockdown says to Zach, "Hey man, we may not have long before they kick out." He notices the kid and softens. "Oh, hey little Z-Man." Zach sits on the couch holding his son. The eviction notice sits on the table. Lockdown quietly does the dishes. The faucet leaks. A moment of peace. Inside the dim apartment, Zach tucks his son into bed. His son says, "I love you, Daddy." Zach says, "I love you too. Always." Zach steps into the other room, exhausted. He picks up Cowboy Titanium's worn notebook from a high shelf. Zach says softly, he'd want someone strong finishing this, someone still powered up. He turns, walks over to Lockdown, and places a notebook into his hands. And Zach says, "This was Cowboy's, his missions, his sketches, the next steps. I can't finish it now, but you can. And you're the only one left with powers out of the two of us. You're the one he believed in, too." Lock takes the notebook, nods with a heavy look. Lockdown says quietly, "He believed in both of us, man. And I'll make sure it counts." Zach sits down again, the weight lifted slightly. Later that night, Zach sits in his dim apartment, hunched over a cluttered desk. One flickering lamp lights the room, a worn pencil in hand. He scribbles lyrics on the back of a torn envelope. Even without power, the songs still come. Beside him, his phone screen glows. On it, his YouTube channel. Subscriber count drops now to 27. A faint crease of worry in his brow. But he keeps writing. Zach thinks to himself, even if no one is listening, I have to do this. Outside on the windowsill, an animal. It's not the squirrel. It's not the raccoon. Something else. Something glowing, watching, beautiful. Zach blinks and looks up. It's gone. He stares at the page. A new song begins. In Colombia at dusk, the chaos has ended. Shadows are gone. A gentle breeze moves through a quiet street. Kids play again. A squirrel races along a power line. The world heals, forgetting the hands that held it steady. Outside Zach's apartment window, warm light spills onto the sidewalk inside. Zach scribbles lyrics under a flickering desk lamp. Lockdown washes dishes nearby, while those who fought learn to begin again. At the city's edge, in the shadows of a narrow alley, a man watches from afar. He leans on a worn guitar case, eyes locked on the apartment window. He crouches and picks up a shriveled, blackened seed from a blotch of shadow sludge laying on the sidewalk crack. It pulses once, then goes still. He turns the seed in his fingers, studying it. The man says softly to himself, "Huh, weird little thing." In a nearby shop, window's reflection, a faint flicker of the shadow passes behind him, like coiling smoke, a glimpse of the rot watching him. He pockets the seed casually, whistling a slow, off-key version of one of Zach's songs. The man says softly, "Mr. Z-Man the Vegan." We'll see what you're made of. He walks deeper into the alley, disappearing into the dark. Behind him, the wall ripples faintly, not from him, but from something watching him back. Some things don't kill you. They get under your skin and make you kill. Back inside Zach's dim apartment, he sits at his desk, pencil in hand, staring at his scribbled lyrics. His fingers finally relax. He sets the pencil down. Zach stands in the hallway outside a cracked door. Soft golden light spills out from inside. He steps into his son's room. The boy sleeps peacefully, clutching a small pendulum Zach made for him in his hand. Zach is leaning in the doorway, silhouetted, watching his son breathe. The faintest smile touches his lips. He thinks, sure, some things don't kill you. They get under your skin and make you kill. But some heroes have love that runs too deep, not even the shadows can follow.
This ending isn't about winning. It's about realizing you're still behind. And that some of the bridges that burned because I didn't know how to do the right thing in the right way. Sometimes growth comes with damage. And sometimes you don't see the cost until it's already paid. What comes next gets darker before it gets clearer. I hit a real low point. And new people enter the story, not as enemies, but as hands reaching out at a time when I really didn't know how to reach back. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in Season 2, Episode 1. Woo!